This is Phone Booth Fighting, your twice weekly mixed martial arts podcast destination, featuring that guy. Who are you?
Frank Marin.
And this guy. Who am I?
Richard Hunter.
And together we do this podcast from stately Mirror Manor here in suburban Las Vegas. You can get the podcast in iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, or wherever podcasts are available, including phoneboothfighting.com, our official website. All previously aired and archived episodes are available right there for your enjoyment. All right, Frank, we'll get to a whole bunch of other stuff momentarily, but we're kicking this thing off tonight with big Frank Mir fight news announcement. Take it away. What's up? What's happening?
Yeah, actually, I'll be part of the 8-man tournament that's been announced by Bellator. I got the word just last night or the night before. I got the phone call to say, hey, you know, we need a headshot. We're putting you in this. And so I obviously agreed. They told me the names that were in there, and it looks like I'd probably be lining up with Fedor hopefully in April.
That is unbelievable. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I'd congratulate you on any fight, but the fact that you're finally getting Fedor.
Yeah, that's a huge moment. And it's actually, I didn't even sleep that night thinking about it, running it through my mind, watching videos, already starting to try to, you know, picking apart his different, you know, traits and game plans. And today I went to the gym with Angelo. He's telling me what he sees. I'm telling what I see. Mm-hmm. You know, really, you know, it's actually been helpful doing commentating this whole time for the ACB because it really has me sharp as far as analyzing people's tendencies and strategies. But then I even told the wife, I'm like, you know, what if I take off for 8 to 10 weeks and I go to Chechnya or something, you know, Grozny, go to a training camp and really just, you know, take this as serious as I've ever taken any fight of in my life.
Yeah, just like Rocky IV.
Yeah, just go up to the mountain.
Grow the beard.
Yeah.
The KGB.
My pathetic excuse for a beard.
The KGB is following you in the snow.
That's right.
You're carrying the log through the forest.
A log carry. I don't know about running through the snow that fast.
So, I mean, because... And we should explain, if you haven't already heard the news today, Bellator has a vacant heavyweight title. We've known that for some time. They signed Frank a couple months back. We talked about that here on Phone Booth Fighting. And all signs were pointing toward, you know, some type of tournament or process of eliminator fights for that title because they were signing not only you but some other top tier heavyweight competition like Matt Mitrione. He's a recent signing. Roy Nelson is another recent signing, and so it made a lot of sense. And today the tournament was officially announced. Now here's the interesting thing: it's an 8-man tournament. There are 4 natural heavyweights in it: yourself, Roy Big Country Nelson, Matt Mitrione, and Fedor Emelianenko. And then there's 4 other guys who are moving up in weight. Mm-hmm. They're all big names. This thing has massive star power to it. But the other 4 are going to be light heavyweights in the Bellator organization, moving up to heavyweight for the fight. We're talking about their light heavyweight champion, Ryan Bader,
right.
King Mo Lawal, Rampage Jackson, who just signed a new multi-fight deal with Bellator, and friend of the Phone Booth Fighting podcast, the American gangster Chael Sonnen.
Yep.
That just made this very interesting. So that's, I mean, I guess what they're going to do, and your match with Fedor is the only one I've gotten any intel on through you, so I don't know about the other matchups. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that maybe what they would do is have like a heavyweight bracket and a light heavyweight bracket to start. You think, or you think they'll mix and match?
I don't know.
It's all just speculation on our part at this point, but...
Yeah, I really don't know how they're going to position that off. That actually probably makes the most sense, so that way you can get guys a little bit closer in weight together and a little bit more of an I really don't know. And so that way you don't have a clean sweep of all the light heavyweights. And really, honestly, I mean, the light heavyweights that are in this, you know, Quentin Jackson walks around at 240 pounds. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of them might even be bigger than Fedor by the time the night comes around and fight. Because, you know, Fedor fights around 225, 230.
Yeah.
So he's not a huge heavyweight, never has been. In fact, he made 205 one time to fight Dan Henderson in Strikeforce.
Yeah, that's right. So I wonder if I think it was very smart that they went ahead and made the fight with you and Fedor first? Because, some would say, well, why do you have to, burn that one right away?
Well,
but then
best opportunity that we're going to fight each other.
Exactly, because otherwise you're going to have to count on both guys winning and advancing in the brackets and all that kind of stuff. And it seems like, with all due respect to the other fighters in the tournament, there's nobody else in there who, has a resume like yours in the heavyweight division where you can just look down it and go, okay, you fought every one of the greats except. Right. And there was always that one exception, that one big omission of Fedor Emelianenko, because he never fought inside the UFC. This is going to be the first time, other than your pro debut, that you've ever fought outside of the UFC. So it's just never been possible before.
No, there was always so many times I heard, it's going to happen. Fedor, they're going to sign Fedor. He's asking for this. They're going to go ahead and give it to him. But I guess the deal breaker always, from what I remember, and I could be wrong, back when he first ended up going to Strikeforce and not coming over to the UFC, when the rumors were strong that the UFC was going to acquire him, was that his company, his management team that he works with, and probably his too, I'm sure he has a great, control over, wanted co-promoting type of, rights to it. And that's just the UFC at the time, was never going to concede that. Not, times have changed. Now it looks like they're going to have to with, Conor. But at the time, they didn't see the, didn't really see the draw or the necessity of relinquishing that. And so that's why it never was never became true until now. And so it'd be interesting to see us now finally be able to face off. And you're right. At first, that was my first thought too, honestly. I was like, oh, we're going to fight each other. Wow, right off the bat, the two of us, possibly lined up together. Why wouldn't you spread us out? Maybe, it'd be interesting to walk through the bracket. But I'm like, well, fight's a fight, man. Now you have to worry about both guys having to come through, not just one guy succeeding. So you're right. The most bang for your buck that guarantees that we're going to actually face off is the opening round.
So this fight is going to be without a firm date set. The idea is sometime in April.
Yep.
Okay. And of course, your agreement with the release of the UFC really didn't allow you to fight until that point anyway. Right. So it's not like it could be done any sooner. But you will be able, I would assume, to go ahead and start. Well, we're promoting the fight now. We're announcing the news, breaking the news here on Phone Booth Fighting. But I assume you'll be able to go ahead and start promoting this on behalf of Bellator.
Yeah. In fact, actually, on Monday, I'll be flying out there for PR stuff. So hopefully Tuesday, I think they even said in the thing that Jennifer was reading me today, or a PR meeting, so we'll find out.
Okay, very cool. So that's happening. That'll be in April. Now, another question is, could this possibly be on pay-per-view?
Yeah, that's actually something that's been brought up a lot today, and I didn't know. Everybody's like, oh, this is such a big fight that have to put it on pay-per-view, and I'm like, well, I mean, they had Chael and Tito on free television, as far as I remember, right?
Right, but they had Chael and Vanderlei on pay-per-view. Oh, that one recently happened, and that also had Fedor and Matt Mitrione on it. I think it was more. I think it was more the fact that Bellator had, they've only tried pay-per-view a couple of times, and I think it was this more recent time when they did it with Chael and Vanderlei. I don't even remember the actual final numbers that thing did, but I knew at that point they were going to experiment periodically with doing pay-per-view, not monthly like UFC does or anything like that, but that they were going to experiment with periodically doing it. It seems like with this, they could do it. I think you and Fedor could carry a main event on a pay-per-view. I think some of the other matchups could. I think certainly the finals could. Once you get this whole thing pared down, a lot of people, were feeling a little nostalgic about Pride today because, Bellator is calling it their Grand Prix, and a lot of people were remembering the old Pride Grand Prix tournament.
Where they had light heavyweights stepping in there.
That's true. They did. They sure did. So, I'm so excited that this is like I said, on multiple levels. I'm happy you get to fight again, but it seems like it's just exponentially better that we're going to finally see you match up with Fedor for your Bellator debut.
Yeah, right off the bat, hit the ground running, huh?
Yeah, that is super exciting. I know they're going to have you know, we should go out and do. I'm just going to produce on the air here for a minute, but we should go out and do a live podcast in LA in January when they're going to have a fight card out there. I think January 20th, something like that. Okay. Somewhere right around there. We had to go out and do a live show. I'm sure they're going to want you to do promotion and stuff anyway. And,
yeah.
We got to get Chael back on the show to talk about this. He'll probably go ahead and start talking about when he and you fight. Yeah. You know, he'll just jump ahead.
Hopefully it's in the finals.
Yeah. He'll just jump ahead to whatever else is going on. Well, that'd be fun too, because you guys were supposed to do ACB, and then the scheduling didn't match up because you had
ACB.
I'm sorry, I said ACB, Abu Dhabi, and then there was scheduling conflicts with you were working commentary on ACB and all that. So it would be cool to would be really cool to see. Well, I'm excited for this. I think excited for you and excited for the promotion. You know, Bellator is doing a lot of right things right now. I think, you know. And
a little bit of luck their favor.
Luck?
No, I mean, I was just making preluding to later in the show. We're talking about Conor. But
we're got to get into that here in a minute. In fact, we've got it pulled up on the big screen. We're gonna play what happened with Conor McGregor.
I do like it. Bellator does feel like the old Pride.
Yeah,
and how they're just, you know, instead of really worrying about who matches up with who, and it's just putting in fights that people are interested in watching. And I think that's what Pride always had going for it, was always interesting matchups.
You know, here's what I think in incrementally they did right. I mean, they started out with some, you know, really world-class talent, but just for whatever reasons, names that not everybody knew. You know, guys like Michael Chandler that they were growing, that are still there, that are awesome fighters. And then, you know, they added some past their prime fighters that, you know, people kind of snickered at it a little bit, but those guys brought ratings, you know, Ken Shamrock and Royce Gracie and stuff. And now they've split the difference and they've hit the sweet spot with guys who are not past their prime. They're marquee free agents that finally came available. But it took a while. I mean, I don't think Bellator could have lured a Rory McDonald, a Matt Mitrione, a Frank Mir. I don't think Bellator could have lured some of those names 4 years ago. The promotion wasn't really ready yet, you know. And I think a big part of it has to do with Scott Coker being involved too, you know, because he got over there, he took that job, and he's taken his time really setting the stage. So, you know, probably what you're going to get on a night like the one you're going to fight on is you're going to get this marquee matchup between a couple of legends. You're probably going to see some of their homegrown talent, like Michael Chandler, you know, the Pitbull brothers, some of those guys.
They're always good at layering it.
Yeah, and so there will be something for everybody because you know, let's face it. I mean, the brass ring to measure your competition against is still the UFC, which is the biggest show. But what made the UFC so successful over the years, in my opinion, was always being more about the show than the individual fight. They were always so smart that to put on a you know, quality matches across the card, so that even though you may have come for one marquee match, you walked away going, boy, that and that were highlights of the night. And I think Bellator's really positioned themselves now to be able to do that kind of thing.
No, I agree with you. And I really like so far, I mean, dealing with Bellator guys, it reminds me of when I first got in the UFC, as far as how it's not so corporate, you know, not that they don't have that entity to them, as far as, you know, once you go higher up in the organization, as far as, you know, dealing with, you know, Viacom or whatever. Okay. But as far as the Bellator guys, from Scott to, you know, Mike and the other guys that work there, everybody's just phone call basis, easygoing. You know, everything's like, hey, can we get this done? We understand it. You know, even as far as when I got asked the question, the opening statement was, I realize this is really last minute, but we need this and this. Can you help us out? Yeah, no problem. You know, just that kind of consideration, even in conversation, is just, it feels, you know, it's fresh and it's nice again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So excited. I'm excited and I don't have to fight. So it's like a win-win. See, I'm excited and you do the work.
Well, it's not work if you like it.
Yeah, well, you can entertain me. I'll just sit in the background and go, woo, go, harder. Keep your hands. I was watching I ought to do that to you. I ought to get close enough to your corner that I can yell the real basic instructions of the casual fan. I was watching a fight where just a clip somebody shot with their phone today, but I could hear it in the background. Somebody going, hands up, knee.
Yeah.
All the basic instructions.
Which is still sometimes a little bit better than some that I've heard.
Well, that's true. That's true. My goal is to yell that stuff loud enough that it gets picked up on the mic. All right.
We can always mic you if you want. You
That
know,
would be
one
fun.
wears a mic.
Yeah. Hey, you know what we should do? We should invent, so now is the time, we should invent some sort of real bizarre narrative about how you've gone new age. And, like how Connor had the movement coach and all that. You brought in like a spirituality coach or something like that. I can get an outfit together like a
Dalai Lama type.
Yeah, like a shroud I wear and stuff like that. Remember when Fedor used to have that weird guy that walked out with him?
Yeah.
Who was some kind of priest or something?
Yeah, his Orthodox.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But he just looked, to us, he looked like an old hippie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could be that guy. Maybe Fedor could bring that guy back, and then that guy and I could face off.
No, but you'd have to be like, I'd bring you in, you have to, carry like the God delusion with you or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's how we'd get in their head. I would get them to see if I can get them to start questioning the basis of their own faith. Yeah. All right.
You know the story about him and his crucifix and gambling, right?
No.
So I'm sitting there and we're all having conversations. I'm like, Fedor, I thought I heard him say that he's not supposed to gamble. Like, well, he'll gamble or he'll play cards before his fight. So sometimes you see him in the back and he's playing cards to help, relax and stay calm. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard something about, he goes, yeah, no, it is. That's why he takes his crucifix off.
Oh, that's what you do?
I'm like, what?
Oh,
yeah, he takes the crucifix off. So that way, he can play out of sight. I'm like, that's all it took for God not to see him?
I think I've heard another version of this, but it's where somebody goes, no, that's why I take my wedding ring off. See, that's why I just take it. Yeah. Well, that's why
I'm sure you hear that version a lot at the brothel.
All right. Well, stay tuned to Phone Booth Fighting.
That's why Mrs. Mir had me tattoo mine on. God damn it. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm tattooed.
Well, hopefully Mrs. Emelianenko isn't listening to Phone Booth Fighting, or he's going to show up with a crucifix tattooed right on his sternum. All right, well, stay tuned to Phone Booth Fighting because as details develop, we'll break it all here and we'll tell you what's happening, give you the actual fight date and different things that Frank will be doing around the fight. Location will be important. Exactly.
Everybody keeps asking me, like, so where's it at? Exactly. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. You'll hear it here first on Phone Booth Fighting. All right, Frank, before we get into all the rest of our content, and we have a lot to get into, fight stuff and otherwise, let's talk about what's actually going to be a very important component of this training camp for you. Freshly.com. They are the online meal prep service that is feeding us, you and myself and our families here on Phone Booth Fighting, Freshly.com. What do they do over there? Well, they hand prepare all natural ingredients, combine them to make a quality meal that ships right to your door at a very affordable cost. It's healthy eating without having to cook, without all the mess, and always fresh, never frozen. So, Frank, I think knowing how busy you guys are, because even though you got your next fight, that's not going to slow the kids down from all the activities and the running around and all that kind of stuff. I know all that's still going to be going on. It's probably going to be nice to have a couple of quality meals at your door on a daily basis.
Absolutely. It always makes it easier. I mean, even today, right now, Jennifer cooked a home-cooked meal, and it took about 2 or 3 hours of her time away from her that and she got a little bit behind because we were doing things with the kids earlier, and that's just one of the it's realities of modern living. So if you can cut something out and still not sacrifice quality and health, prep time is a huge one. So you take those 2 or 3 hours of prepping food, and now you just have it to its 2 or 3 minutes, throw something in the microwave, and you have a high quality, healthy meal. It just saves so much time and relieves stress in other areas.
Cooked by chefs with the help of nutritionists right there at Freshly, and you can definitely taste the difference when the meals arrive at your door. No artificial ingredients, gluten-free meals, and there's even vegetarian and vegan options as well, which is important for me and maybe for you. Go to freshly.com. They've got a very special order, a very special offer exclusively for Phone Booth Fighting listeners right now. What you do is you enter the promo code Phone Booth at checkout and get $40 off your first 2 orders. There's free shipping on every single order, so that's 6 meals cooked by Freshly chefs for only $39. And then you eat those, you're going to love those, you're going to want 6 more. Guess what? Enter that promo code Phone Booth again. You're going to save another $20 on that food as well. So $40 off your first 2 orders by entering the promo code Phone Booth at freshly.com. Also, Frank, Earth's Brew brings you this podcast week in and week out, and a couple of very loyal sponsors to the Phone Booth Fighting family. Jonathan and Joe created this all-natural, plant-based relaxation product, and they have come up with a way for just 15 calories per packet, create something without any artificial sweeteners, ingredients, or the like, that you can just mix up in a little bit of water at bedtime, after a long day, whatever the case may be, and relax without having to take in a bunch of, say, sugar that's involved in alcohol and things like that, because that's, I think, one of the main ingredients in what gets people kind of fat and out of shape is they're trying to relax at the bar, but a couple of thousand calories later, their physique is showing it, right?
Yeah, beer bellies catch up to you quick.
That happens. Plant-based Nirvana, relaxation, fusing the best of all worlds, health, taste, efficacy, and experience. It's also compatible with all diets. If you do keto, paleo, if you're a vegan, vegetarian like me, Frank, I know you have enjoyed it after training, for example. You do, and you're really about to start kicking that into full gear, a couple of training sessions a day. It's going to be nice to have a couple of packets of Earth's Brew in your gym bag.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're beat up and you're tired, sometimes it helps to get into that relaxed state of mind to be able to drift off into sleep. And also, as you have anything that you're preparing for, stresses of daily life, sometimes the mind is just, winding away. And I found this very useful in helping me calm down to get me into that mood to just fall asleep naturally.
Go to earthsbrew.com and enter the promo code Phone Booth for 10% off all orders at checkout. That's promo code Phone Booth for 10% off at earthsbrew.com. All right, Frank, before we get into what happened with Conor McGregor tonight at Bellator, we're actually going to play it because we got to pull it up here on the screen. It was on tape delay over from Ireland. We have a little bit of UFC breaking news. Did you hear Anderson Silva is out of his fight with Kelvin Gastelum? It was supposed to occur later this month, November 25th. That fight's already been rescheduled once, and it had been rescheduled it had been rescheduled once after Gastelum had fallen out of it the first time.
Marijuana, not any performance enhancing.
Right. This is a flagging at the hands of USADA. Anderson Silva tested positive in an out-of-competition test on a sample that was collected on October 26th. As a result, he has been provisionally suspended by USADA, and because the fight is just a couple of weeks away over in China, the UFC is seeking a replacement opponent for Kelvin Gastelum. Really bad news for Anderson Silva because this is going to be second time around, right, for him. And by those USADA standards, especially at the age Anderson Silva's at, if there's no mitigating circumstances to this, is that it? We call it a career?
Yeah, well, but his first offense didn't happen under USADA banner, right? So is this still considered a first offense?
Was that right?
I think so, because, remember Josh Barnett got in trouble, but he had been popped, I think, 3 different times for Winstrel.
Yeah.
But then when he just got caught, his last competition test.
You know what? Let me look that. I'll look that up because that's a good question. It was right around that time, I think. So I'm not sure. Let's look that up. I'll tell you what. While we're looking that up, let's just cut to Bellator 187.
Well, I guess just to finish, who knows where we're going with Anderson?
Yeah.
If it's going to be 2 or 4, but both would be pretty detrimental.
Well, that's true. Even if it's treated like a first-time USADA suspension at this point.
So he's 42 now.
He is. Hold on a second. I will tell you exactly how old he is. Sounds right.
No, I always thought he was about 4 years older than I am.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Anderson Silva is he was born in 75. Yeah, so you're right. Yep, 42. And let me just look up that one suspension and see.
He got 9 months time served or something for that one.
Yeah.
It was taking some kind of he claimed they were dick pills, but
boy, beware the dick pill.
yeah.
Just beware the dick pill. That's
You know what though? That's a lot of a commitment to your
dick.
Well, no. You sit there, you're like, okay, you're busted on this. All right, so what's the excuse? Well, I'm gonna say I needed pills. What you're gonna do now is you're gonna say that your dick doesn't work all that great, so you have to take pills to help your dick out.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that on publicly to everybody. Yeah, you're gonna say that publicly to everybody. Nah, it's all right, man. I took juice. Yeah. It's almost kind of equivalent. You ever seen that one? What was that commercial with Eli Manning? And they're sitting there and they're like, he's in a courtroom.
Yeah.
And they go, sir, we'd like to enter into, records, my client's browsing history for that night. And he goes, I did it. I killed her.
Yeah.
No, it's good. Just stop.
You know what that one reminds me of? That one reminds me of, remember George Zimmerman, the guy that killed Trayvon Martin?
Yeah.
So it was introduced into the
I
trial
know exactly what you're saying this. Yeah.
that he had trained jiu-jitsu because they kept using the term ground and pound. And for his defense, they had his jiu-jitsu instructor get up and basically say he was the worst student he'd ever seen.
Yeah.
Like that was, and that's probably good for your defense, but at the same time, you've got somebody up there going, "Oh, this guy's the biggest pussy I've ever seen."
What about Lloyd Irving's rape defense?
Okay, you're going to have to help me out because I do not remember all of that story.
Okay, now, Lloyd Irving, I
remember the basics of it.
Girl came back, said she was raped by a couple of the guys, and then Lloyd was a part of that group.
Yeah.
Lloyd's defense was, I was there. Yes, I even participated. I forgot the extent of what he said, but basically, no, I didn't fuck her because I couldn't get hard.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. See, why didn't we hear more about that story? I didn't. Now you got to get your phone out while I'm looking up Anderson Silva's drug
here's the thing
suspension.
I have to do sometimes.
Yeah.
I have to look things up and be like, okay, was that on the news or was that me talking to one of his students?
Yeah, we better you better make sure about that, especially given some of the stuff we have to talk about
You might
later.
have to.
All right, so Silva tested positive the first time after the Nick Diaz fight. That was January 31st, 2015. Because I remember both those guys had Diaz tested positive for pot. Okay, on February 17th. Okay, that's when the suspension was confirmed. August 13th of 2015. That was the disciplinary hearing for Silva. And then he came back a year later on February 27th, 2016. So when did USADA start?
Was it 2015?
Yeah, but it wasn't. It was like summer, wasn't it? I'm thinking summer for some reason. I feel like it was around mid-year, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe you're right. Maybe at the beginning of the year, it had not quite kicked in yet. But he got a year's suspension, just I guess by the UFC or by the State Athletic Commission.
Yeah,
probably by the State Athletic Commission. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. So, but like you said, even if it's a first year suspension, that's going to be bad enough. First time suspension under USADA, given his age. Bummer about Anderson Silva. All right. So Bellator 187 is in Dublin, Ireland tonight, and the card features, I mean, by most standards, not a ton of top talent. There is a featherweight standout, AJ McKee, in the main event, undefeated fighter, undefeated in 9 fights with 6 finishes. Real young guy, too. He's taken on Brian Moore, who is stepping in for his originally scheduled opponent, who is James Gallagher, who's one of the SBG Ireland fighters. So Conor McGregor is the face of that, obviously, in the face of Ireland, for that matter, in MMA.
Okay. So I didn't spread lies.
Okay.
It says Irving, in the case of 19... a gang rape in 1989.
Oh,
Case.
89?
Yeah.
89?
Due to the fact that Newport police and courthouse now I just had it and it's fucking, I'm getting old, man. I gotta
1989?
Yeah.
That was a long time. I was thinking that was a more recent story.
No, I think it just came. Well, there was other situations of sexual misconduct at his gym with students and stuff. I don't think necessarily him doing it, but here was a. Yeah, according to the follow-up article, the same period, the only reason Irving wasn't convicted was due to the fact that he was able to convince the jury that he was impotent when it came to his turn to perform the act.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, you know something. You're
sorry. That's what I was saying. Just like I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you want to be clear about everything.
No. But I mean, so that going back to what we were saying about coming up with something as a justification for your excuse for why you're not guilty, and then to sit there and go, well, you know, it would almost kind of be like, you know, this girl says this. The guy got a little dick. I couldn't have done that. You know.
Yeah.
Like, that's your defense. You're gonna go with that.
just avoid erections at the gym. How about that? That'd just be a good blank. That's what I do. You know, there's nothing sexual for me going on there. Let's just leave it at that.
There's a close tie between violence and sexuality. No.
Yeah. All right. So Bellator 187 was in Ireland tonight, and there were a number of SBG fighters on the card, and that's Conor McGregor's crew. So I actually queued this up here so we could watch it. You and I have not seen the fight yet. The fight where this happened actually kicked off the main card. Conor McGregor jumped in the cage post-fight. His training partner here got the knockout finish. Conor jumped the cage to celebrate. The first problem being that Conor was not a licensed cornerman. And, you know, this is the second time in just the last couple of weeks that this has been a problem for Conor, because Artem Lebov, who was fighting in the UFC a couple of weeks ago, Charlie Ward, by the way, is the guy that's training partners with Conor and James Gallagher. Artem Lebov was fighting, and what happened was Conor was sitting cage side. I don't know if you saw this or not, but he was getting up and walking right up to the cage and cornering him, essentially. I mean, shouting instructions at him. And Mark Goddard, who's the referee for this fight, who was the referee a couple of weeks ago, was telling Conor to go sit down because he wasn't a licensed cornerman. You know, you can yell out as a fan, but from your seat, you can't just walk up to the cage and join in the corner. So that happened a couple of weeks ago. That was weird enough, but this one's a whole nother level of weird. So Ward is... first round here, and I think it was like a first-round finish or something. I don't think it'll last very long, but we'll be able to watch it real time, and you can tell me what you think with Conor jumping the fence. And he not only jumped the fence, but after Goddard got involved and some of the other athletic officials got involved to try to separate him, I think Conor somehow put his hands on Goddard, maybe pushed him from behind, and that much I saw in the fan film video that I looked at earlier. What I didn't see, although it was part of the report, maybe we can see it on the official Spike telecast here, is that Conor made physical contact with one of the athletic officials. So that maybe apparently happened too. By the way, what do you think is up with the solid green sleeve of the tattoo?
I think it's a cover-up.
Yeah? That's an awful lot of cover-up.
I mean, maybe I'm trying to look to see if I can, you know, because usually even on any cover-up you can see little shadowings of what was underneath of it. I don't know. That's that's a boring thing to get done too, because any type of, you know, that's like shading doesn't hurt as much as getting things lined up. Yeah, because it's, you know, it's like 11 needles at once, just almost like a fan, you know, like a brush. But I mean, that just was methodically boring to sit there and just get painted on like that.
It is like that. It's like somebody. It's like he just went in and said, "Hey, give me," you know, unless he was just a fan of the old jazz standard green sleeves. I don't know why.
Sorry, buddy.
Anyone would, and no one. Anybody that gets that reference is dead. They're not listening to this podcast, or they're an old black man, old jazz trumpet player or something. Maybe we have one or two of those listening. All right. Anyway, well, Ward definitely was owning the ground there, and the fight goes back to the feet. I guess we're doing a little quasi fight companion here. Boy, first fight of the night. Anyway, what I was saying to you earlier off the air, we can talk about this until the moment occurs, is that, boy, talk about Conor McGregor, who is not only the face of the rival organization, the UFC, but honestly all of MMA.
No, I would say he's the face of MMA right now.
Absolutely.
He is by far the most famous mixed martial artist in the world.
Just handing a ton of free publicity to the Bellator promotion. I mean, he's not supposed to be in there. Maybe there will be some sort of repercussion. Maybe there'll be a fine. I don't know what. But it's amazing to think.
Do you think they're really going to be able to find him?
Well, the UFC can't. They don't. That's in their fight. They don't have any jurisdiction over.
Well, they have morality and conduct clauses in their contracts.
Yeah.
You know, you go out and say something stupid, and they can't. Yeah. But I mean, what are they going to do against?
Yeah, what are they going to do? They're busy trying to lure him back into the octagon.
Conor now calls the shots.
I mean, you think about it. What would happen if virtually any other UFC fighter? Because really, what you're doing is, I mean, you're doing it in an aggressive manner, but there's not a whole lot of difference in just walking into the cage and cutting a promo. You know, taking the mic and giving a little free airtime to your rival organization. I would think virtually any other fighter in the UFC organization would be severely sanctioned by their employer for doing that.
Yep. Dana would say something and be on record for it already. Kevin Iole would already have printed it out.
Right.
Then there would be an apology from the fighter and whatever repercussions were going to come from it.
Absolutely. But in Conor McGregor's case,
I bet we hear nothing.
Not only nothing on that end, but I don't even know what could be done in an official capacity because the fight is in Ireland. So it's not like it's in a state like in the United States where there would be a state athletic commission governing it. Now, maybe Ireland has their own. You never fought in Ireland, have you?
No, but they have their own athletic commission.
Do they? Does Ireland?
I'm pretty sure they do.
I mean, some countries do, some don't. I know sometimes
they have an athletic commission, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, what they can do is just they'll go after the fighter.
Well, the fighter, not Conor?
Yeah.
Well, the fighter didn't do anything.
Well, just like if my cornermen do something, I can be fined.
Yeah, but he wasn't a cornerman.
Yeah,
see, that was the whole issue. He's just, at this point, he's a fan.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing you could do, honestly, if you really wanted to, Bellator wouldn't do this because they're probably happy with the publicity. You could charge him with trespassing.
Well, but I mean, that's even more publicity.
Yeah, that's true. That would be funny. But, you know, it's no different than like if a fan jumps in the cage. I guess he's going to make it out of the first round here. Boy, this guy Ward took – oh, that's the shot. Okay, knockout right there toward the end of the first round. Okay, so here comes Conor. Oh, my goodness, Conor just tackled him. And now Goddard is pulling Ward off. They're embracing, trying to separate him. And now Conor is mad. Yeah, he pushed Mark Goddard from behind. He's pointing at him. Boy, they're nearly.
Poor guy just got knocked out.
I know.
He's getting trampled.
Yeah. Boy, this is a mess. Okay, so now Conor McGregor's got his finger in Mark Goddard's face. Let's see. And we got different people getting involved, trying to hold Conor McGregor. He seems to really be focusing on Mark Goddard here. They got him. They're getting him out of the cage. I think he might have come back in. If what I saw earlier is the case, they're trying to get Conor out of the cage right now. All right, he's raising his arms in victory there. Boy, the arena hadn't even got that many people in it yet, because it's, I guess, first fight of the night or first fight of the telecast anyway. Boy, Ward, meanwhile, got a nasty cut on his forehead. There he comes. He's coming back in. Now he's coming back in the cage. Oh, boy. What do you make of this?
I don't know. I
mean, let's just set it aside for a second that it's Conor McGregor. I mean, you can't have stuff like this going on.
No, in fact, I would have thought someone would have snatched him up by now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they have, you know, in Vegas, they have the police are sitting there also inside in case if anybody gets out of hand like that. So maybe it's something that they'll do in the future in the Ireland shows. I don't know.
No kidding. Well,
I don't know. There has to be an Irish and drinking joke in there somewhere.
yeah. I'll tell you what, I don't know how many people would have tuned in for the very beginning of this fight card, because this was on tape delay too. So this actually got press in the middle of the afternoon today that this had happened. And you talk about a teaser. I mean, you want to talk about a promo where, don't miss the beginning of the telecast on Spike TV tonight. Boy, Conor McGregor just that's invaluable what he did there for the fight card, I guess. Also,
I wonder what he got mad about, though.
I think he was mad that I think there is already existing tension between him and Goddard because of a couple of weeks ago. Right. He didn't like being told to get back to his seat, so there's probably a little bit of that. And then I think it's probably also the fact it was so aggressive. I mean, he jumped in and tackles his training partner, and they're rolling around on the ground together, and then Goddard and the other officials are pulling him off. I mean, he doesn't have anything to be mad about. Goddard's completely in the right to do it, but maybe it's just a matter of Conor doesn't like being told what to do. I don't know. Yeah. Also, I guess we'll let this just roll while we're doing the rest of the show, but in addition to that main event, Kimbo Slice's son is fighting on this card. Kevin Ferguson Jr., Baby Slice, at 165 pounds. I guess he inherited his mother's physique at 165 pounds. A 1-1 record.
Because Ferguson was, that guy could have had life been differently. He looked like a linebacker in the NFL.
Yeah.
That guy was, built like a brick house.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I guess that'll come up here in a little bit. Let's talk about this UFC fight card that's going down as we tape tomorrow night in Norfolk, Virginia. A little bit of a sleeper card. This one coming off of the heels of one of the best pay-per-views in recent memory for the UFC a couple of weeks ago, and then I think we were all really excited for the Max Holloway-Frankie Edgar fight. I don't know if you heard that's scrapped because Edgar's hurt.
Do you know what happened to him? I saw that he got scratched from it from the December 2nd card. But
I don't know specifically what the injury is, but I don't think it's anything that's going to keep him out of action a real long time. I think they're trying to find another opponent for Max Holloway. But with that being said, this Norfolk card this weekend kind of flew under the radar, I think, just a bit, but it's actually a pretty stacked card, especially for a fight night card. At the top of the marquee, a lightweight contenders matchup between Dustin the Diamond Poirier, ranked number 8 by the UFC, and number 13 ranked former UFC lightweight champion Anthony Showtime Pettis. Now, Poirier, speaking of Conor McGregor, lost to Conor a couple of years back and has been on a 5-1 run with no contest since that loss to McGregor. Poirier's last fight was against Eddie Alvarez. It was that weird no contest.
With the knee on the ground.
Yeah, that whole thing that happened, which sucked because that was a fight everybody was excited to see. But with that hiccup aside, Poirier's 5-1. Now, Pettis has really been on more of a wandering journey since he lost his lightweight title to Rafael dos Anjos. He'd gone on a 3-fight skid, and then remember he went down to featherweight and back up to lightweight and that sort of thing, and he's kind of alternated wins and losses. So definitely more momentum for Poirier than Pettis at that point, but certainly you can't sleep on the skills of Pettis. So that being said, what do you think?
You know what? Until I see Pettis change it around, there's not a lot of confidence in what he, I'm going back to what he was capable of doing earlier in his career and all the way up to the championship and then even defending the belt. But then ever since that loss to RDL, he's just been on a downward spiral where it just hasn't looked like himself.
It is like, one of those kind of two different directions they went in terms of how do you rebound from a high-profile loss. Pettis loses his title to RDA, but Poirier, lost a fight to Conor McGregor, who was really just emerging into superstardom at that time. But contrary to kind of the troubles and struggles that Pettis has had, Poirier has really got right back on track and has, regained his steam, regained his momentum. So, but on paper, that looks like a great matchup. The co-main event is interesting because nothing at stake here in terms of title shots, but you want to talk about something that looks like fireworks on paper. How about Matt the Immortal Brown taking on Diego the Nightmare Sanchez at welterweight? Now, Matt Brown had said leading up to this fight this was going to be his retirement fight because he's on a 3-fight skid himself. I mean, no shame in losing to these guys, Donald Cerrone, Damian Maia, Jake Ellenberger, but he's also lost 5 of his last 6. The other 2 losses were to Johnny Hendricks and Robbie Lawler. The only fight that he's won in the last 6 was against Tim Means. But apparently this week he kind of hedged a little bit on retirement. He was saying this was going to be a retirement fight, and then I think, you get busy with fight week, and you remember all the reasons you like fighting and all that kind of stuff, and he kind of backed off of that a little bit. But he has been KO'd in his last 2 fights. I mean, and he's in his late 30s, I think, at this point too. So, I don't know. Can you put yourself in the head of Matt Brown for a second?
It's hard to want to give it up. I mean, you sit there and in one essence, you're not being successful, but then you also realize you're not maybe having success against some of the talent that you're facing. Giving it up completely is just, it's a hard pill for any athlete, I think, to swallow. Mm-hmm. That's why I think you see a lot of guys maybe step out of a UFC or a Bellator type of organization, step down to somewhere a little bit, slower paced, guys that are a little bit newer and green, and still be able to continue on and enjoy, especially if you're not somebody, well, I guess it depends on your reasons for fighting. If you're fighting for the purest reasons because you enjoy to fight, then to give that up sucks. It's like, well, I like to fight, fighting is fun. If you're just fighting because if you want to be famous or you want to make money, I think it's easier to retire for those reasons because it's like, especially after you gain a certain amount of notoriety and fame, and now you're like, well, I can go do stunt work or be parts in movies, or I can go open up a gym here and still make money, still be involved. And it's like, all right, well, that kind of scratches the itch. But if, again, going back to, and I'm thinking that Matt Brown is that guy that likes to fight for the sake of fighting. Yeah. To sit there and say, well, guess what, dude? There is nothing that's going to replace the feeling you feel in the middle of that fight. Are you really ready to give it up?
Hypothetically speaking, do you think, I'll give you 2 different scenarios. Do you think it would be harder to, come to terms with retirement if you're maybe a really good fighter, but you've never you either never challenged for the title, or let's say you never held the title. Let's say, because Brown's contended, but let's say, okay, you've never held that title, but you've been a quality fighter and you're in a deep division, and but you've just never really, you haven't lived for a number of years, maybe just at the very top of contention. Do you think it's easier to retire that way and just looking at it and going, okay, well, I had a really respectable career, I just never quite got to title contention? Or do you think it's tougher to do it even when you've had more success? I mean, on the one hand, you could say, well, I've already achieved a lot of what I want to achieve. Maybe I've even already held titles. But, I look at like Brown's record, for example, and when you name off, okay, you've lost 5 of your last 6. That does not sound good by any means until you start looking at the people you've lost to. Lawler, Cerrone, Hendricks, Maia. Do you think it's tougher when you can look at it and go, okay, well, I might have lost 5 of the last 6, but it's to all killers?
Yeah, I think that makes it a harder decision. I think it's because, like, well, I mean, shit, anybody in their prime, the best guys in the world lose to those guys.
Yeah.
Those guys beat each other, trade victories back and forth. I mean, you're talking about the deep end of the pool there. There's some big sharks. I think that I would feel, speaking of myself, right, I think that when the day comes where I'm losing to guys that nobody has a clue who they are, that are up and coming, people that never would have even lasted 2 or 3 minutes with me in my heyday, I think that's an easier sign on the wall to sit there and go, well, shit, it's time to hang it up, Mm-hmm. But when you're losing to guys all in the top 10, it's like, well, shit, you know what I mean? Like, now what do you say? Like, I mean, that's one of the things that I held on to when people for their while talked about, when I was having a slide of losses, they're like, well, you should give it up. I'm like, you realize I haven't lost to anybody outside the top 10. Everybody I fight outside the top 10, I smash. They don't make it one round. And I'm losing to guys like an Alistair Overeem or a Daniel Cormier. It's like, I don't know if you're aware, but these guys are pretty good fighters.
Yeah. Yeah.
They go back and forth and win. I just happen to be fighting fucking shitty choices on my part probably, but I keep fighting killer after killer after killer instead of maybe taking a breath and fighting, having more Duffys thrown in there. I probably should have done throughout my career, where it's like, hey, coming off a loss, yeah, let's go fight Alistair. It's like, oh, well, that's not probably the best idea, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Matt Brown's probably that same guy that just chooses to keep taking, here he loses to Lawler, like, hey, well, why don't you fight Maya now? It's like, oh, well, sure. It's like, where maybe somebody else and better management would have sat there and went, nope, let's go ahead and fight somebody. We'll go ahead and slip down to the prelims. Let's fight an up and comer. Let's fight somebody a little bit more less than Donald Cerrone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, always exciting. Diego Sanchez always delivers. Matt Brown always delivers. And Brown is going to fall if he does not fight again. He's going to be one of those fighters for me he would retire as a winning fighter, but not by a lot. I think at this point he's got a few more wins than losses. But I think there is a moral victory in a fighter being able to have that long of a career where you look at the actual record and you go, well, there's a fair amount of losses on that record, but he will also stick out in your mind as one of the more exciting fighters you ever watched. In fact,
actually, this fight will be and that's why it's hard for him to want to retire, because people would still want to. I still want to watch him fight.
Yeah.
There's fights you watch because they might be able to position who's going to be the best guy in that weight class, and it scratches that mental itch that, like, well, who's the best welterweight? So I want to see that line up. But I think now we're really coming into an era of fighting where it's kind of like playing a video game, where you're like, well, I want to see that guy fight that guy. Well, who's going to be the number one guy afterwards? Like, fuck, I don't care. I just want to see that guy fight that guy.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what's going to happen, and like, this is a fight. Neither guy are anywhere near getting a title shot. They'd have to probably both go on a 5-fight win streak to even be in the conversation at this point in their careers. Not that they couldn't do it, but the thing is that I still think this is a main card fight, because fuck, man, it's exciting. I want to see. I mean, every fight I've ever seen Diego Sanchez in, he's crazier than shit. He's batshit crazy, and he fights like it, and Matt just don't get, that guy doesn't back down. You have to kill him, the whole time he's coming after you, So seeing these two guys collide, it's like, I don't care what this says about where they are in the division. It's in itself is a super exciting fight I want to watch.
Heavyweights are in action too in the feature bout. Andrei Arlovsky who is a fairly recent opponent of yours, currently ranked number 13, is going to be taking on fellow, is it Junior Albini? Jeez, I got to look this up. I got caught. This guy is an up and comer. He's had one fight in the UFC. He's coming off his UFC debut, which was a first round KO over Tim Johnson. He's going to be mad at me when he finds out I had to look up his first name. But he's 14-2 record overall. And speaking of Arlovsky, well, I'm looking this up. Arlovsky comes into this on a 5-fight skid, and some people say should have been a 6-fight skid, by the way. But a 5-fight losing streak, and here's another guy that has got to be in that kind of Matt Brown predicament right now of needing to make some tough decisions, certainly with a loss. I mean, maybe if he beats Albini, then he lives to fight another day. But 6 fights in a row, especially against Junior Albini, in case he if he loses to this fighter, what do you think? This might be the last time we see Arlovsky?
He made such a name for himself, and heavyweights are not a deep pool.
Yeah.
I I think the only weight class that might be more shallow, or we can make this argument out, is the flyweights. It's just that there's not a lot of heavyweight guys out there with athletic ability and the mindset to want to fight that end up going into fighting. We lose a lot of guys, professional football, playing hockey, that, well, that guy would have been a good fighter. I'm like, yeah, he went a different route in life. And so, whereas the other weight classes, if you're a 170-pound killer, it's not easy to be in the NFL, but, you could be a professional fighter and be a world-class athlete. I mean, DJ, is the best example of that. The guy, you see him work around the cage. The guy is a world-class athlete, pound for pound, a freak.
Yeah.
You put him on a football field, he'd get murdered. You know what I mean? Like, even probably on a high school level, I don't know how well he would do. But, you put weight restrictions and now, he can do well. Well, the heavyweights, we don't have that factor. So, I think that Andre still, if they put him in situations where he's still a draw, if he wants to keep fighting, I think it just comes down to a health issue. As long as he's not getting, Chuck Liddell was an example of that, who probably could have kept on fighting because of all the things he accomplished. But he started losing in ways that I think put fear into people. You were watching him fight going, I remember when he fought Rashad Evans, I thought he might be dead. I was like, holy shit, that might be the first death we've ever seen. Like, I'm watching somebody that, his eyes open, just on the ground, not even moving, not even going through convulsions, just completely quiet. I'm like, whoa. And then that was happening several fights in a row, and so, if Andre is able to stay competitive, the losses are, a psychological, hurdle for him to get over. But if he still sells tickets and he's not a health issue, the organization will keep him.
Yeah. Here's Kimbo Slice's son, Baby Slice, is his fight's about to start, fighting Fred Freeman, who made his pro debut back in, I think it was February or March. Also, while we're taking a look at Baby Slice here, another notable fight cancellation. Did you hear Dominic Cruz and Jimmy Rivera are off?
Yeah.
That one sucks. That's a bummer.
It's Cruz that's hurt, right?
Yeah, I believe so. So this is these are a couple fights I was really looking forward to, between that one and then Edgar and Holloway as well.
The Edgar Holloway one I was extremely looking forward to. I thought that would have been one of the, that was one of the more marquee matchups in the year.
Yeah.
And Cruz, that's to be pretty crushing to him, because right now with Garbrandt getting knocked out the way he did, and then now Dillashaw's the champ again, somebody that he had actually defeated, a bit, I know a split decision victory, but, he has a win over the current champion. So, vying for a title shot if Garbrandt doesn't get an immediate rematch. Cruz were to be successful against Jimmy, hard to say that he doesn't get the title shot,
Yeah.
So, and now he just took himself a back seat.
Yeah. Hey, we got some clarification on the situation with George St. Pierre, too. The last episode, we were talking about how good he looked in his comeback against Michael Bisping, took Bisping's middleweight title, and we were playing matchmaker and speculating on what GSP should do next. Well, it turns out apparently his contract was more specific than we realized, than anyone realized until GSP revealed it. He is actually contractually obligated to fight interim middleweight champion Robert Whittaker to unify the middleweight title. He actually doesn't have a choice. So that was apparently specified in the contract when he agreed to fight Bisping, that if he won the middleweight title, he wouldn't just leave it. He'd have to unify against Whittaker. Now, GSP apparently has a neck injury, something that he injured in the first round. He says he's already getting treatment for it. It's nothing that should keep him out of action, I don't think, too terribly long. But basically, that's what we're going to have unless anything changes, is GSP and Robert Whittaker. I know they've got a fight coming up in Perth, and I don't know if it can be done. Oh, boy, Baby Slice just took the back, sunk in the rear naked choke. There's the tap. 3 minutes left in the first round, so 2 minutes into the first round.
That's awesome. I'm glad to see somebody who's
yeah.
That's really Ferguson's kid, right?
I mean, yeah.
How old is he?
His name's Kevin Ferguson Jr. I don't have his age in front of me. I'm not sure.
Because, how old was Kimbo?
Kimbo was older. I mean, he was early 40s.
42 when he died, right?
Was that right, 42? I knew he was in his early 40s.
Right, so
yeah. Well,
We gotta look this up, dude. I mean, did he have a kid at like 14?
Well, I'm not going to completely rule out the possibility. You can tell me, but yeah.
Good old Wikipedia. Let's see what's going on here.
All right, so a good night for Kevin Ferguson Jr. But anyway, I guess we'll get GSP and Robert Whitaker, which makes me feel better about. You got it?
Yeah, he was 42 when he passed away. Born in 74.
Yep.
Let's see. Notable relatives. Roddy Ferguson.
Roddy Ferguson.
That's his relative? 6 children.
Okay.
I didn't know Roddy Ferguson and him were related.
No, I made a joke. It's not. You're thinking of Roddy Piper.
No, Roddy Ferguson, the judo guy.
Oh, I don't know the judo guy.
Oh yeah. He he's down in Boca Raton with the top team and stuff.
Yeah.
He always helped like Jeff Munson and stuff. Like I know him. He's actually a good martial artist.
I wonder if that was Kimbo's entree into ATT. I mean, he was already in Florida.
Yeah.
I just assumed that was always the connection, was that he was just already in Florida.
No. Well,
okay.
So anyways.
Are they, does it say how they're related? Are they cousins?
No, I'm trying to figure that out.
All right. Well, while Frank will determine the exact age of Kevin Ferguson Jr., So
I mean, yeah, I guess that works because Kevin Jr. is 25.
Yeah.
So let's see. He was born in 92, 74. So I was like 18 when he had him.
Yeah. All right. I'd still.
That's not crazy. Yeah.
It's not crazy. I'd still recommend against it.
Yeah,
no. But
not really the recipe for success.
No, but these things
they
do
can happen though.
That's right. So anyway, congratulations to Baby Slice. All right, Frank, tell everybody about lowtnation.com.
Well, it's one of the easiest ways to make sure that you're feeling at 100%. Your hormones and how your body's functioning and firing off is going to be a lot to do with how you feel and how you're able to go out there and make the most use out of all your workouts and how you eat, how you sleep, how you feel, and how you conduct yourself with others. So down there, you go ahead and call Brandon down there at Low T Nation, talk to Jason, and they'll inform you all the information, give you a consultation, see if you're even viable for it. If you sound like somebody that might be necessarily in need of any kind of hormone treatment, they'll direct you in the right way. You can talk to your general practitioner to make sure that everybody's on board, knows what blood work needs to be done. They'll set it up for you once the blood work is done, and they get the test results. And if you are deemed that you're necessary for this type of medical treatment, then at that point it becomes super convenient. You never leave your house again. It's shipped directly to the door, and you're able to continue on with the medication, being very consistent and very convenient.
The thing I'm amazed about is how many male listeners to Phone Booth Fighting we have that are qualified candidates for the lowtnation.com treatment. We hear from more and more of them every week. I know Brandon over at Low T Nation hears on the phone from more and more of them every week. And you can be next, and you can be the next one with a new lease on life, literally. What you need to do is go to lowtnation.com, call the phone number, get a free over-the-phone consultation. They're going to set you up with a lab in your area. They're based in Atlanta. That doesn't matter in terms of where you're based, because no matter where you are, they're going to find a lab that can do the quick, necessarily preliminary testing. And then from there, everything is just shipped directly to your door. That's the only out-of-house trip you're going to have to make to get on board with lowtnation.com. All right, so as Baby Slice is getting his hand raised in victory here, Frank, a couple of things that big breaking news stories from earlier today, and this first one really kind of dovetails on a lot of what's been going on the last couple months that I guess I don't even think you and I have really touched on it in terms of like all of the
sexual allegations.
Yes, it really started with Harvey Weinstein, and then ensnared some other big name Hollywood types. But the latest today is Louis C.K., the comedian. Now, Louis C.K. is a guy who, for a lot of years, kind of was, I think, flew under the radar a little bit. The last couple of years, he's exploded in terms of his stardom. He is, I think, in a lot of ways, he is perceived as kind of the comedian's comedian. I mean, now he's more of a household name, but for many years, he's one of these guys that comedians look at and go, I mean, I'll compare him in some ways to somebody like George Carlin, where comedians will look at him and go, oh, that's a guy that I admire, you know. And he's an incredible comedic talent. But today, he had been accused in the last 24 to 48 hours by a story that was published in the New York Times of sexual misconduct with, I think, 5 women who went on record with the New York Times. And they had basically accused him across the board of either masturbating in front of them or asking if he could masturbate in front of them or trying to in some way get a scene like that together where he could. And some of these allegations...
That's not been one of my things.
Boy, me neither. We'll talk about that in a second.
But the girl's there.
I know.
Why are you touching yourself?
I have some thoughts on that, but pretty far back in the past. I mean, 2002. I think one of them even dated back to the early or the mid 1990s. But just to give you an overview of what was being alleged. For example, a female comedic duo, Dana Min Goodman and Julia Wolov, said back in 2002 at a comedy festival in Aspen that Louis C.K. invited them to his hotel room for drinks, but as soon as they got into the room, they said he asked if he could take out his penis. The women thought he was joking, but then he got naked and masturbated in front of them. The following year in 2003, comic Abby...
The girl stayed there and watched?
Well, they said that they thought he was joking. They laughed and screamed.
But when they saw the dick and realized it wasn't a joke, they stayed?
Right. Yeah, and this, not in all the cases, but in some of the cases, that is kind of a recurring theme, and we should talk about that in a second, because I know where you're going.
Yeah, because you're going to have to help me with this, because I realize that, you know, there's this fine line now where you don't want to do victim blaming, and I get that,
right.
Where it's like, okay, well, just because you wear a slutty outfit out at 2 a.m. doesn't mean you deserve to be raped.
Definitely not.
But on the flip side, it seems like because we're so worried about victim blaming, that then we can't talk about victim responsibility, which is at the same time, I mean, like if I go out in the jungle and don't bring a rifle with me and all of a sudden I get eaten by a tiger, you're going to be like, well, you know, it's like, it's my right to fucking walk around. You're like, but I mean, you couldn't have been preventative. You know, again, not that it should ever be, I get it at the end, the rapist is a fucking asshole. Mm-hmm. But like if this was my daughter and I'm like, you know, Daddy, he masturbated in front of me, like, wait a minute. So a man invited you up to his room? Yeah. And you went into another man's room that's not your husband and you thought it was, the guy's not openly gay? No, he's not openly gay. What did you think was going to go on? I mean, in what world did you think that, like, I'm going to be honest with you right now. I'll go on record. I will never invite a woman to my room unless I have sexual incantations in my mind. I can think of no reason to have a woman come up into my hotel room except to fuck her. You know what I mean? If I invited a girl to my room, my wife goes, well, Frank, oh yeah, I wanted to play chess with her. She knows I'm full of shit. You know what I mean? Like, Frank, there's only one reason why you invited that lady into your hotel room. And you gave her alcohol. Yeah, I was trying to get her drunk, lower inhibition, to play cards. Yeah, to play cards. You know what I mean? Talk shit, shits and giggles. No, that's like saying, you know, you guys are friends with girls. It doesn't exist. Heterosexual men are not friends with...
No, I don't go that far.
Well,
I have female friends.
That you've never had a sexual thought about?
Sure. Absolutely, yeah.
I don't have those female friends.
You need different friends.
You are different. You're an alien, dude. But most men are sick perverts like me. And
okay. So that's kind of some good establishing predicate for this debate. And by the way,
and then if I sat there and went like, so he pulled his dick out when you realized he wasn't joking, yeah, and you watched him masturbate, yeah, I'm like, did he tie you up first? Like, what kept you from walking out of the room? Well, I was nervous about that. Well, fucking what?
Yeah, the one about So that's the circumstances surrounding that one. Now let me give you this other one, because this one I think is a little more easy to determine. He's on the set of a TV pilot that he's doing with a comic named Rebecca Corey, who I've never met, by the way, but she has an organization called Stand Up for Pit Bulls, which is separate issue, but she actually uses her stand-up comedy to raise money for pit bulls. So
we got someone on her team now.
That's right, yeah. But I knew her from that. But she did a TV pilot, and she said, he had asked her on the set if he could masturbate in front of her. There was another woman in the late 90s on the set of the Chris Rock show where he had repeatedly asked if he could watch her masturbate. I mean, here's what you can't do. You can't walk up to somebody on a job and say, hey, can I masturbate in front of you? Like, that's going to get you in some workplace trouble.
I get it. That's sexual harassment.
So
sexual misconduct.
Yeah,
I get it.
So I get that. Now, if it's, okay, somebody comes to my hotel room for social circumstances or something.
Yeah, but in those situations, those girls didn't go up to his room, did not watch him masturbate, right?
Well, no. Oh, correct. Yeah, and the other examples.
He came up, asked him a very inappropriate question under the illusion that he has power over them because he's fucking Louis C.K.
Yeah.
And they still said no. Now, he's in trouble, and I think what they did was completely correct. It's like, okay, well, you can't help that someone asked you something like that.
I think what you can't do is expose yourself to someone if they're not wanting you to expose yourself to them. Now, at the point in time that you maybe, I don't know how long you stay or you laugh or you have whatever kind of reaction to it, I would hope that the reaction to that would be, I am out of here, right? Because I will tell you something. I mean, this is when I try to relate to this. I mean, I can't relate to it, but when I think about it from a male perspective, I like to think I'm a pretty, if it's someone I'm comfortable with, or certainly in a relationship with or whatever, a pretty sexually open-minded person. But the one thing that I would just be horrified by is if I ever realized that I thought we were flirting, I thought you're attracted to me, whatever, maybe we're going to go out, I'm getting up the nerve to ask you out on a date, whatever we're going to do, and then I've misread that, and we have that incredibly awkward moment where you're like, I'm sorry, you misunderstood. Like, and even though it's all fine, there's nothing inappropriate about that. My face would be red. I would be sweating. I would be like, oh my God, like I just totally misread that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So I just don't ever want a moment where like I feel unattractive. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a heartthrob, but I just mean I like to think that by the time we get to a situation where anybody could be seeing any penises, that it's very clear that we are, even if it's just casually, we're dating or we're, there's zero question that we're interested in each other mutually, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've never, throughout my life, have ever understood, I guess if you have no other recourse but getting a prostitute, I've always thought it was like, that's just, my ego wouldn't allow that.
I couldn't suspend disbelief.
That's my thing. Yeah. I'm like, I've never banged a girl that didn't want it. You know what I mean? Like, or at least, told me she wanted it. I mean,
to some
I think
level.
that being an aggressive male can be, it has gotten me, in the past. It's how I met Mrs. Meir. I was very forthright about my intentions, but she gave me a green light first. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't come out and say, hey, I like you, but there was flirting on her part where I was like, all right, you're giving me the green light. I got you from here. I'll take over the rest. You know what I mean?
There is something definitely off about this behavior of just going up to, this is like, I mean, I would never think to just
it's just off masturbating in front of somebody. That's fucking weird.
Yeah,
man.
I don't.
Come on, dude. That's weird. I mean, it'd be like, hey, can you masturbate for me? Can you do it? I mean, hand jobs suck. I think they're the worst. But.
I don't get what, but there must be something psychological here, and we're getting to the fact that Louis C.K. admitted to all this, by the way, which is interesting. The statement that he put out today talking about this, I've got it here, but
if anybody at home wants to read one of the best ways to come back off of allegations of misconduct, I thought he fucking handled it flawlessly.
I thought so too.
If it's true,
I mean, and it was in this case. So assuming you're not having to fight false allegations, then yeah. I thought he did handle it. Well, let's just get to that part. I'll tell you what what his statement said here. He said, I want to address the stories told to the New York Times by 5 women, and then he named them, who felt able to name themselves and one who did not. These stories are true. At the time, I said to myself that what I did was okay because I never showed a woman my dick without asking first, which is also true. But what I learned later in life, too late, is that when you have power over another person, asking them to look at your dick isn't a question. It's a predicament for them. The power I had over these women is that they admired me, and I wielded that power irresponsibly. I've been remorseful of my actions, and I've tried to learn from them and run from them. Now I'm aware of the extent of the impact of my actions. I learned yesterday the extent to which I left these women who admired me feeling badly about themselves and cautious around other men who would never have put them in that position. I also took advantage of the fact that I was widely admired in my and their community, which disabled them from sharing their story and brought hardship to them when they tried because people who look up to me didn't want to hear it. I didn't think that I was doing any of that because my position allowed me not to think about it. There is nothing about this I forgive myself for, and I have to reconcile it with who I am, which is nothing compared to the task I left them with. I wish I had reacted to their admiration of me by being a good example to them as a man and given them some guidance as a comedian, including because I admired their work. The hardest regret to live with is that you've done hurt to someone else, and I can hardly wrap my head around the scope of hurt I brought on them. I'd be remiss to exclude the hurt that I brought on people who I work with and have worked with whose professional and personal lives have been impacted by all of this, including projects currently in production. And then he lists all those projects. He apologizes to his manager, to his network, and then he concludes, I brought pain to my family, my friends, my children, and their mother. I have spent my long and lucky career talking and saying anything I want. I will now step back and take a long time to listen. Thank you for reading. And as I read that, and I do agree with what you said, if you got something to own up to, that's just about as good a way to own up to it as you can.
Head it on.
But if you substituted, hey, will you look at my dick, or hey, can I jack off in front of you, with, hey, would you like to go to dinner with me? Hey, would you like to go out on a date with me? You'd be okay. And that could lead to someone looking at your dick. Like, I just don't understand. I don't know why you'd want to jump that process, because everything you and I just talked about, feeling like somebody's not really attracted. Like, I would never want to have sex with somebody because they felt like they could get something from me, like a job or money or, a break or something like that. I mean, even if that worked out for him, even if there were other women who are in their minds thinking, yeah, I'll watch him jack off because he's a successful comedian, maybe I can be his opening act or something. I wouldn't want that as a guy, because I would just feel like I would feel unattractive. So I don't understand not wanting to do the, hey, would you be interested in hanging out? Can we go social? And
well, I mean, and maybe
we get to that point.
I mean, I worked at the Rhino for a couple of years before I met Mrs. Muir.
Right.
So I had a pretty interesting dating life at a young age.
Yeah.
Working at a strip club.
Yeah.
And you can differentiate, I think, situations where a girl is slower than others, and have a conversation, go out to dinner, watch a movie,
Yep.
and work your way that way. There are situations where you can jump right to the end game, but I think that's more or less really it has to kind of be led by the woman. I mean, I've had some pretty quick experiences of meeting somebody and then being in bed with them, and I got to say, most of the time it's led by the female.
Sure.
Because of all the, it's no mystery what men are interested in, but women are a little bit more of a complicated situation. So they're almost like, if they're going to be a speedy one night stand, it almost is more on the woman's pace, and she can set it.
Yeah.
So I mean, if he's in a situation where girl's like, hey, so can I come up to your room? You're like, oh, all right. Well, then my next question is going to be like, you want to come to hang out, or are we going to fuck? Like, let's just, I don't want to misread this, because you came on very strong. Are we going in that direction? Oh yeah, no, I don't want to come and talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, all right, cool. I can wrap my brain around
But
this.
see, I even think at that point, because there's been some flirtation or communication, it's not like you're just walking up to somebody cold.
No, I've
And,
never been able to do that.
in the lobby of a hotel and going, hey, because
Well, and also too, like, I think making the first move on a girl, there's only, you know, and I think I'm reading what he's saying. He's right. I guess I've never been in a position where I felt like I had power over people. To have that kind of confidence, because I mean, look, I've been the heavyweight champ of the world. I've never been told that I'm hard to look at by the opposite sex. You know, I've had my fair, decent amount of attention. But that being said, I still, even if I'm going to walk up and, you know, if Mrs. Mir tomorrow kicked me out of the house and I had to start fucking dating again, I'm not going to walk up to a girl in a bar unless you have to first look over at me, give me some kind of nonverbal cue, a giggle, a lip bite, a hair pull, something where it's like, oh, okay, well, that's the first.
lip bite.
Something, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, you know, girls, you know, have a little sexy looks.
Or a hair pull. What
yeah,
is
when
that?
girls play with their hair.
Oh, what is it? Okay. I was thinking that. So you're talking like a twirl.
Yeah, something. You know what I mean?
I was thinking more like a pull.
No, not that quite barbaric. But you know what I mean? Like some kind of nonverbal communication,
Yes,
whether
yes.
it's staring,
No, I get you.
making eye contact for an extended period of time. I'm like, all right, well, you keep staring over my direction. I will now take the next step and start talking and break the ice and, you know, and make the first official move. But you still need a woman. I mean, I've never just walked up to a girl and have her like, oh, hey, are you talking to me? Yeah, I think you're hot. Let's talk. Like, without any kind of build up, you know, without any kind of signal that like, oh, hey, you want to be with me. And so I think the way he's able to have, far stretch, but I think I'm better looking than Louis C.K. But for him to be that openly able to shift gears, like, hey, so, hey, you want to look at my dick? The only way he felt probably comfortable was because, I doubt he did that when he was 19, 20, 21 years old. You know what I mean? Like, he did that once he developed a power. And I think he acknowledges that in his apology, that I knew I had a certain prestige that gave him the confidence to go ahead and open the door and just be like, hey, so do you want to look at my dick? Because girls keep saying, you know what I mean? Because then he probably gained confidence that he did it once and for whatever reason enjoys masturbating. I want to actually talk to him one time about that. Be like, yo, so like, did your mother bathe you or something until you were like 15? Like,
let me tell
what's the issue with masturbating in front of a woman? Like, what's the point?
He's a big, side note, but if you're wondering if you might ever have a conversation with him, he is a huge MMA and boxing fan.
Oh, okay.
To the point that when he works comedy clubs, he will pay, like on a Saturday night, he will pay for the club to buy the pay-per-view. I mean, he's not working clubs anymore now, but in the past, he would buy the pay-per-view so he could watch it in the dressing room. Like, he doesn't miss anything. Oh, no fights. Anyway, side note. Yeah. But maybe
I could ask him then. Like, hey, buddy. I mean, that's coming from me. I think we've had this conversation. I'm pretty vanilla when it comes to sex. But at the same time, like when people sit there and they, you know, like I remember my wife fucking dragged me. Were you with us then? Did you have to go to the fucking 50 Shades of Grey?
I had to go to that separately of you. I saw it on my own.
You know, I went and saw it. I think I even posted it on my social media and stuff. It was Valentine's Day coming out, and I'm like, fuck, man. I'm going to probably get dragged to this movie anyways. I might as well get credit and go and take her on Valentine's Day. So we went on Valentine's.
That's when we went to. Okay,
I'm watching this film, and I'm like, this is what women want? Like, or this is sexual? Like, I'm like, I just want to stick my dick inside you. Like that in itself feels good, and you do it long enough. I'm like the whole beating the shit out of each other. I'm like watching them all. I'm a boring sexual person. I think sex itself is fun, and you don't really have to add a lot to it. It's kind of like, you know, it's like a good pizza. It's like, I don't know, I don't need to fucking add pineapple, dude. It's, you know, nothing crazy. You know, like food's good. You know,
I like a little pineapple on my pizza. But that being said, what is the disconnect for me with this? Other than, nothing. Here's the thing. For me, nothing should ever be unwanted. That's a bottom line. As long as consensual activity between adults, to me, whatever that is fine. If it's consensual and you're an adult, those are the operative terms.
That's it, man.
But I think there must be something with him that he's drawn to this idea. Like he's drawn to that scenario in particular, and not only the masturbating in front of people, but the cold call, if you will.
And he hasn't broken any laws, though, right?
Well, it would be illegal. Okay, so here's the thing. It's civilly, in a civil court, you could be there could be a judgment against you for sexually harassing somebody, so you could be sued for that. Like if you, I'm talking about like walking up to somebody, hey, how about I jack off in front of you? You know, like that you could be sued for. Now, in terms of actually breaking the law, if you're going to expose yourself to someone, perhaps. Now, the fact that you're in your hotel room, these people came in, maybe there's mitigating circumstances. I don't think in reality there's anything that he's ever actually, you know.
I wish we could have more openly this conversation about that, because I feel like I know that somebody at home is listening is fucking blowing a fuse, because it's like, well, you should never blame the victim. I'm like, really? I don't know. Like, if my daughter or my wife went to a hotel room with another man, I'm pissed off at whatever he did, but I'm pissed off at them too.
You know what,
like,
though?
why the fuck would you put yourself in that situation?
Here's where I would draw a line on that. I think, yes, in terms of common sense, you're smart to want to arm your daughter or your wife that way with that type of thinking. I think also it's smart to think that way from a guy's standpoint, you know, that listen, if there's any other reason that I'm inviting a girl to my hotel room, I should probably make that clear. Hey, don't read anything into this. I just, for whatever reason, there might be a reason for us to meet there. However, those are things that are customary or maybe good common sense.
I just had this happen. When I was in Russia the last couple months ago, one of the people for the organization wanted me to do an interview. It's like, okay, I found out that the interviewer was a female. Okay, well, then she was coming with a male cameraman. I'm like, all right, well, that'd be fine. We can go down to the restaurant. She got there before him. Do you know what I did? I stayed in my fucking room. I was like, okay, I'll be down in a little bit. Let me know when the camera guy gets here and I'll come down. Not fucking going down there to a restaurant with a female.
Look at you and your Billy Graham rule. Who knew you and Mike Pence had so much in common?
It's common sense to be like, I'm going to go down there. I don't care what she looks like. If someone walks by and sees me having dinner or sitting at a fucking table with a woman, I'm fucked. There's no explanation for that. You know what I mean? And then her word versus mine, who knows?
Next
but at
thing
least
you know, Robert Mueller is investigating you.
Oh, fuck, man. So it's easier just to like, hey, so, you know, like to me, it's like a little forethought into the situation. Now, if I can do that as a guy going, okay, you know, I do it all the time. If I'm somewhere and I need to catch a female's attention, I don't walk up to them. If I'm like in a parking lot and I see you drop something and you're a woman, I'm not going to grab it and run up to you. I'm like, hey, miss, whoa, hey, look, on the ground. Like, you know, I'm very conscientious of the fact that I'm a man and that they're a female. And I know that, you know, just forethought. So if I can do that as the male, why can't women, you know, also be doing that?
They can. So I think all of that is good common sense advice. However, I don't want to see that rise to a level of responsibility.
No, and I get it.
You know,
I'm not saying it's their fault.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would like to be able to have the conversation without people being pissed about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having a race conversation. You can't have, if two Caucasian males right now, if you and I start having a racial conversation, economics and race got brought into it, we are really treading the line to where it's scary for anybody in a position of public figure, right? Because it's like, well, if you have a racial conversation, it could be miscued as racist conversation. So it's better just to avoid it altogether. I'm like, really? Avoiding to talk about things to kind of, you know, like, hey, where are you coming from? Where am I coming from? How can we better understand each other? Like, that's a bad conversation. Well, you know, it might be considered racist. I'm like, just because it's racial doesn't mean it's racist.
Well, I agree. There is a strong distinction for me between racial and racist.
Right. So I think, again, in this situation, talking about victims, I think there should be a common sense conversation. You know, like, well, that was stupid. Why'd you show up there? Without it being like, well, it's still not your fault. I'm not blaming, you know, I'm not putting blame on you. You should be able to walk into a man's room and not expect to get fucked. I get it, but it's like, okay, that's nice, but reality and you know, it's like, well, this should, I guess because I'm a fighter, I see that all the time. Guys go, hey man, this technique should work. I'm like, I hear you, buddy, but in reality, it doesn't work out that well.
Okay, so here's maybe where I would give a little bit toward what you're saying as well. If you are in that situation, you're in that room, maybe there's been some mixed signals or something like that, and something is, you know, more indirectly referred to. Maybe there's some verbal flirtation or something like that. Then, okay, maybe at that point I can kind of see how signals might have been misread, and you need to make it clear that that's not actually what you're there for. However, I don't think even in that situation, like even if I you know, let me harken
'cause,
back.
Look, a hotel room. I mean,
yeah,
unless you're in a big ass suite, the average hotel room only has one chair in it. Right? How many hotels have you ever gone to that's not a big fucking suite?
Right,
Have more than one chair at the desk.
Right, yeah.
So if I invite a female into my room, somebody's fucking sitting on the bed. How am I supposed to have a straight conversation with somebody of the opposite sex when one of us is even on the fucking bed? Like, the incantations of it being sexual are so overwhelming for anybody with a straight face to tell me, I invited a woman up to my room. I did not expect to have sex with her. Or a man invited me to a room. I didn't think there was any sexual incantations behind it. I'm like, really? You really thought, like, that never once crossed your fucking mind that there would be sex involved in this?
All right. Now, keep in mind, though, in this particular case, there's two women together. And, I mean, maybe if you're real ambitious, you're trying to string that scene together. But I do think it's fair to say that if it's more than one person, you might not be quite as suspicious.
I agree with that. I'll go with that.
You know, so
safety in numbers.
Yeah,
but if you go by yourself up to a room, I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't know how. I mean, I'm just sitting there going, could I explain this to Mrs. Meir? Could I sit there and go, well, the girl called me up for an interview, but she would just want to know if we didn't want to go to the lobby. There's too many people there, so I went to a room.
Yeah.
What? Oh yeah, I was just doing it. She said to come do the interview. I went to a room. Do you really think I could have that phone call with my wife and not have my house fucking burned down?
Right.
I mean, like, there's just no way. You went to a female journalist's room to do an interview by yourself. Yep.
Yeah. No.
You didn't think she was going to come on to you. No, babe, I thought she was just fucking being a journalist. Like, shut the fuck up.
Well, the thing is, I want there to exist, and this is why I want to be careful about as much as I think good is coming of, especially because we're focused on the Louis C.K. thing because this happened today. But and you look at these examples like Harvey Weinstein, where scumbag. I mean, you're talking about really aggressive, assault allegations.
Yeah, no, his stuff is, he's real rapey.
Yeah, and also just leveraging, just the whole, hey, do you want to work in this town again kind of stuff.
No, I mean, that to me is rape. I mean, whether I physically assault you. You know what I mean? If I use my size or my physical strength and brawn to fuck you, that's rape, right?
Yeah,
obviously.
Right.
But if I also use fear tactics, I mean, whether I sit there and threaten you financially, your career, or I put a gun on the table and say, if you don't fuck me, I'm going to shoot you. Yep. Okay. Well, she didn't resist. Well, what the mean the fuck she didn't resist? Yeah. Of course she didn't resist. You said you were going to kill her. You know what I mean? Like, there's still, to me, that all falls under the same umbrella of rape.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, if so, that's no longer consensual.
Yeah.
You know
and, I mean? Well, I think that, it's good. So there's definitely very positive things that are coming with all of this enlightenment and people feeling empowered to talk about this that's happening. But I do also, at the same moment, want to be careful that we don't go so far as to say, I don't want to, I don't want to fall into the category of, I also don't want to blame. I mean, I get everything you're saying, but if you weren't you and if it was a different guy, I do want a guy to be able to say, if anybody were to ever say, oh my God, what do you mean you let that woman into your room? You honestly thought sex wasn't going to take place? I do think there is also a place for a guy to say, yeah, seriously. Like,
really?
They just, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess my mind's too, yeah. If my buddy said, my wife's mad at me, and he goes, what happened? Well, an old friend of high school met me on Facebook, and she came over, and, the bar was full, so she came up to me, we just hung out in my room, and just, we just talked.
Well,
first of all, you're about the only guy in the world. I've been on this earth for 38 years, and I don't mean this to insult any of my other friends or anything else that's married, but you're probably the only male in my life that if you told me, if I walked into your room and we're out of town together and I knock on your door and 2 porn stars walk out of your room and you tell me that you honestly were interviewing them and nothing happened, I would believe you. Like, but you're it. You're the only person I know that honestly I'd be like, oh yeah, that's Richard. Yeah, that motherfucker.
You just be starstruck. You'd be like, holy shit, Ron Jeremy.
Yeah. I like how you twisted that. That was good, man.
That is a porn star I've had in my hotel room before. So,
I'm pretty sure you didn't bang him. So.
It's just, I think that and every individual is there, and I definitely think in this day and age you would want to be cautious of that kind of thing for sure. But going back to the Louis C.K. thing,
rape wise, and I know this from a friend of mine that had an issue in that area. You don't ever want to be in the room with a woman by yourself.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's just me now. I mean, because if the police show up and say, well, she said you raped her.
Yeah.
And I say no. All they have to do is like, well, were you with her by yourself? Yes. Done. I'm going to jail.
Yeah, I mean, it may eventually get sorted out, but
yeah,
it's
but
gonna,
now I'm fucking for the rest of my life. I'm known as a rapist.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, I guess maybe, and that's just how I think any male who's not hyper vigilant of that situation nowadays, you're just setting yourself up for disaster. I mean, that's the thing I'm going to bestow upon my children. Not only am I telling my daughter how to be safe and not make dumb decisions to put herself in a situation where a criminal could take advantage of her, I also, too, tell my boys how not to ever be misconstrued as a criminal. Be like, hey, you know, don't do this. The girl who's passed out drunk, we're not going to bang that girl. You know what I mean? Like, you're not, I mean, in the past, I mean, you know, if a girl's sloppy drunk, you know, it's like, well, you know, get her number and maybe next time, you know, like, fuck, you know, like, you can't, you know, like, we just have, there's going to be a whole checklist of things that, you know, that you have to be as a male. Just as much as we talk about, you know, I think there's a responsibility, you know, not responsibility, but, you know, a common sense factor for women. It goes with men.
No, I agree with all that. And just one other point I wanted to make about the Louis C.K. thing, and this, I think, again, speaks to, there's some, like, really dysfunctional motivation to him wanting to do that, in my mind, in the sense that if you don't have to be Louis C.K. famous to get groupies. Let me tell you something. If you are the opening comedian on a Monday night bill somewhere, I'm not saying every cocktail waitress is going to want you, but, I mean, there's somebody. You know, I mean, there, and same with bands. I mean, just the fact that you have a guitar on, there is someone in most of those clubs somewhere that's just going. They're drawn to that swagger and that style and that culture and everything. Same with fighters. I mean, you know, you can fight on at a Indian reservation, the first preliminary, and you know that's attractive to some women. So what I'm trying to say is, if he just, even if he's the biggest dork in the world, or, you know, until he realized he was a funny comedian, didn't have a lot of luck with women, I don't know. But if you just are looking to pick up groupies, they're there on some level. So even at that, you could get a more organic scenario going, so that by the time, again, anybody saw any penises, it was all very obvious that everybody was interested in this. You know what I mean? So just the fact that it's immediately jumped to, I think there's some power thing there. I think you're actually drawn to, okay, I'm powerful. You know, because even if you're, I mean, guys like to feel like men, but, you know, it's not, I think we're enjoying the feeling of it. There's a lot of other things involved in sex, like you were just saying, other than power. You know, you're like, oh, this feels good. This is pleasurable. It makes you feel warm. And yeah, maybe you're also feeling manly, but you're not feeling like, you don't have to always feel like
a creeper.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, it's like when people would say that about, you know, rapists sometimes, and they're like, oh, but that guy could get anybody he wanted. That's totally beside the point. Doesn't matter what you look like. Doesn't matter, you know, it just, you want that, like, control. And while maybe this wasn't like rape, maybe there was still some element of, I'm drawn to feeling like I'm in control. I don't know.
Two things I want to, before we move on to the next one, is one, I think as long as we never take the females or the victim's lack of common sense into consideration for sentencing and for the responsibility of the crime, then I don't think that's victim blaming. Meaning that I can't sit there and go, well, officer, she showed up to my room, I thought she wanted to fuck, so I raped her. It's like, well, no, that doesn't count.
No.
You still raped her. It doesn't matter what you thought, how you read it. Then, you know, anytime if I were to enter that into evidence, well, she's some coke whore that was a hooker that, you know, it's like, no, that's irrelevant. So, I mean, I think that's when we draw the line about victim blaming. But I don't think it's wrong to have a conversation about common sense to teach women. It's like, not all men are scumbags, but dare I say most probably are a little bit on the sexual deviant side.
Yeah.
To put yourself in healthy situations. And at least now too, I mean, the platform, we talk about how things are going to change. All this shit that we're hearing about is 30 fucking years old in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad that things have taken so long. I mean, the Kevin Spacey stuff happened, fucking 30 years ago,
Some of it. One of them was just last year, though.
Right. No,
but yes, it does.
My point
some
is
of it
that
does
so
date
many
back
things
to
in
him.
Hollywood have been hard for people to come forward for, to say they're a victim of situations. So, I mean, hopefully the silver lining to this dark cloud is that in the future, as things occur, people don't have to sit on it for 20, 30 fucking years before seeking any type of justice. Because then, that means that, for example, like the Bill Cosby case. What if the first girl that he fucking, quaalude and fucking raped came forward? How many other girls would not have been raped?
I 100% agree. And you're absolutely right. And that kind of segues into our other story here, which is dominating the headlines today, and that involves the Alabama senatorial candidate Roy Moore. Now, did you know about this guy before he won this Republican primary? He's famous for, this goes back a number of years, but he was an Alabama judge, and he put up the 10 Commandments in his courtroom and refused to take them down, and was basically removed from the bench twice because he would not take them down. Now, the problem with having the 10 Commandments up in your courtroom is only 2 of those things are laws. Don't steal, don't murder. The rest of them are just these moral values, right? Which has nothing to do with law and order. So he's a whack job. I mean, before any of this stuff happened today, he doesn't think that, and this doesn't have anything to do with these accusations, but just to paint the picture for you if you don't know about this guy.
He's a 6,000-year-old Earth guy.
Oh, is he ever? He is a guy who basically believes that because, he's one of these, because we're, we've turned into a godless society, that we're being punished with things like 9/11 and that sort of thing. He doesn't think that a Muslim should be allowed to serve in Congress like Keith Ellison. Like, he thinks there should be a religious test. That person should not be allowed to serve. They should be removed from Congress. So he's a wacko. But we had not heard this about him until the last couple of days. The Washington Post talked to several women who have accused him, in one of their cases, of pedophilia. A woman who says she was sexually assaulted by him when she was 14 and he was 32.
Look, I'm real quick. I'm going to tell you that every time in my life, whenever I see an older guy do that to a very young girl, the first thought that always crosses my mind is that you are sexually inept and you most likely have a very little dick.
Yeah.
Why else would you want to fuck a 14-year-old? What is she going to do for you besides lay there and cry? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just, even if you could get erected, I don't know. To me, like, that just makes my stomach kind of lurch. And to think of the kind of guy that would have to do that, I'm like, are you that insecure? Like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you get with a woman that knows what she's doing and it feels,
but there's no logic to this. I mean, that if you're talking about that, and by the way, he denies these allegations. That is of these several allegations that have been made, that one is the one that involves pedophilia, involves underage sex.
Yeah, but the problem is that he is admitting to dating 17 and 18-year-olds while he's still in his 30s.
In his 30s. He's saying he doesn't remember on those, and that's a little...
Like that one.
Yeah, that's a little...
I tried to pull that with Mrs. Meir. Did you take out the trash? Did you ask me? I don't fucking remember.
Yeah.
It never seems to work.
Yeah, that one's a little concerning. But, of course, the 14-year-old is the one that everybody's focusing on because that would really be the crime here. Now, this allegedly happened in, I think it was 1979. The girl says that what Moore did when he was an assistant prosecutor in Alabama, she was sitting on a bench outside. She went on the record, by the way. Her name is Lee Korfman. She was sitting on a bench outside a courtroom with her mother. Her mother was having to go in to deal with a child custody issue. Moore sees him, tells his mother that he will watch the girl while she's in there because you don't want to expose the young girl to those types of sensitive courtroom proceedings. The mother says, okay. Allegedly, while he's sitting there, he gets the girl's phone number, then starts calling her to court her, to date her, gets her out of her house, and allegedly takes her to his house where he sexually assaults her.
Didn't he give her alcohol? And then...
So another one of the girls...
I was confusing the stories.
Yeah, another one of the girls says that when she was 17, that they went out on a date, and that this was in the late 70s, that they went out on a date and he provided her with alcohol, and at that time the legal drinking age would have been 19. So while she's not saying they had a sexual encounter, he would have provided her with alcohol underage. Obviously, the big scary allegation here is the 14-year-old. Now, Moore went on Sean Hannity's radio show, and he flat out denied even knowing the 14-year-old. He said, "I don't know Ms. Korfman from anybody. The allegations of sexual misconduct with her are completely false." He did recall knowing the other two accusers, and said, "If we did go out on dates, then we did, but I don't remember that." Hannity asked him again if he had unequivocally say that he never dated anybody in their teens when he was in his 30s, and he said, "That's out of my customary behavior." Hannity then said he would not want his 17 or 18-year-old daughter dating a 32-year-old, and Moore responded, "I wouldn't either." Now, this has already prompted several prominent Republicans to call for Moore to drop out of the race. John McCain has called for him to drop out of the race, in addition to several Republican representatives. Also, Mitt Romney said this today, quote, "Innocent until proven guilty is for criminal convictions, but not for elections. I believe Lee Korfman, her account is too serious to ignore. Moore is unfit for office and should step aside." Now, I actually, as politically opposed to this guy's, I mean, he is an absolute whack job. But let's set all that aside and just talk about the accusations here. I really am a big believer in two things. Certainly innocent till proven guilty. And also, in terms of the 17, 18-year-olds and you're in your 30s, yeah, creepy. But if your age of consent is 16 and you were north of that age of consent, I'll maybe make some personal judgments about it, but I don't think we need to treat you like a criminal if you didn't do anything criminal in those situations. Now, whether or not he should drop out of the race, I mean, I don't think this, to me, these allegations, this doesn't, I'm not ready to say he's a pedophile. You know, I'm not ready to say, well, I've seen enough, okay, done, you know, he assaulted a 14-year-old. I will say this, though. And, you know, I'm going to sound like Donald Trump here for a second, but certainly if allegations are true, he should drop out of the race. That's what Trump said earlier today. But how about this? This is not going to go away. I mean, this is going to stay with him even if he gets elected to the Senate. I personally believe that if something this egregious happens to someone like this, you know what I would do if it were me? I would sue that person. I would civilly sue that person. And I would say that is, not only is that not true, you are besmirching my good name, and I will, you know, I'm not trying to victim blame or anything, because you're not a victim. I'm telling you that didn't happen. I don't know what your motivations are, but I'm going to sue you, and we're going to get in court, and we're going to get all this on the record, and we're going to get you under oath, and we're going to get me under oath, and I'm going to tell my truth, and, you know, we're going to sort it out that way, and I'm going to ask for punitive damages. Because, you know, I think about things like, to me, that is the only way to really prove when some horribly salacious allegation is made about you. Now, I also understand that not everybody is going to have the means to do that, to sue, but he certainly would.
Yeah.
I would do that. That's what I would do.
I agree. And I think even a step further, I wish in our judicial system we had it to where it was much more commonplace that if someone makes false accusations on someone, because we all know, come on, common sense, someone calls you a rapist and it hits the news, you're going to carry that stigma over your shoulders.
Right.
If you're able to go back and not only prove your innocence, but prove that the other person willfully came out and was trying to falsely accuse you of a crime that they very knowingly know you didn't commit, I think that it should carry the same weight back the other way. If I can go back and prove that, for example, like the kid Banks from Southern California that spent 6 years in prison, I think that the girl that accused him of rape that now came back and acknowledged that she made it up, her family put her up to it, I think her and every family member involved all should do 6 years in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only thing. I mean, to me, it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense because you committed a crime.
Yeah, I heard Moore had his defenders today, and I heard one Alabama representative say that he felt like anybody who is involved in if they know of someone that committed a crime like this, for example, this type of crime going back 40 years and didn't say anything, he thinks that they should be held accountable. Now, I don't believe that should be the case in terms of victims. I don't think you can go to a 14-year-old and go, hey, why didn't you say something? And I did actually.
But I think parents, if they're aware of something, I don't know.
I agree with. No, that part I agree with. That part I see.
If someone's daughter goes to them and says, hey, Dad, this happened to me, and the father just, I
agree with that part.
Under the carpet or something, then, I think they're liable for. I don't know what we do to them, but they need something to go their way.
Yeah, and I by the way, I did hear that that representative he was on an interview with Anderson Cooper a little while ago, and I guess to me he kind of clarified the remarks, saying that he didn't really mean it in terms of victims. Now, here's a guy, though. If you want somebody in this whole deal that we could probably...
Well, like in the Andy Sandusky case.
Yeah.
Jerry,
yeah.
Sorry. Who's Andy Sandusky? Fuck, I don't know.
Yeah.
But Jerry Sandusky, any of the people that told me that they were aware of what he was doing, all should be in prison, too.
I agree.
If you know that there's a child rapist and you turn the other eye... You're just as culpable.
Joe Paterno should have been. They couldn't tar and feather him enough, in my opinion. I mean, he got off easy. People sometimes will feel sorry for him. He got off easy.
No, if he knew what was
going on. And he did. I mean, that was proven.
And to me, like, it's like, well, fuck him. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. There's little kids fucking being raped and you turn the other eye.
100%.
Like, I mean, there's not a lot of things people can probably agree on universally, but I'm kind of thinking that raping children is probably one that across the board that Muslims, atheists, Jews, everybody, we can all agree that this is a fucking horrible thing.
And if it's underage, it's rape because it's below the age of consent. That's what you got to understand. A 14-year-old cannot consent to something. Now, that brings me...
friends are 14. When I first read that, I looked at it, I was like, I have a 14-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
I'm like, if a 32-year-old man coerced my daughter into sex... You better put him in prison. Yeah. It's like, because the minute he gets out, I'm fucking going to have my cell waiting for me, man, because an hour after he's out, I'm going in.
Well, I'll tell you who doesn't agree with you is Alabama State Auditor Jim Ziegler. Now, Jim Ziegler is a fellow member of the Alabama Republican Party. He told the Washington Examiner that biblical stories offer a justification for the acts that Moore is accused of committing. He said, for example, take Joseph and Mary. Mary was a teenager, and Joseph was an adult carpenter, and they became parents of Jesus.
Okay, now, first of all, we have to all abide by the laws of our land, right? I can't sit there and go, well, marijuana, I don't agree with the laws that you have against it. If, now the laws are changing, but I can't sit there and throw my own moral justification. Well, I don't agree with the laws that you have because you guys will stick me in jail just as fast as anything else, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there going, because even customary, shit, man, 500 years ago, the minute a girl had her period, they were getting fucking married.
Yeah.
And it wasn't considered creepy then because people died when they were in their fucking 25. It was like, you're at the end of the fucking road, But that's not the society we live in nowadays. So, to sit there and start justifying it's like, wait a minute, and God also told people to kill people, right?
Yeah,
like
there's slavery in the Bible.
Yeah.
And
there's beating your fucking slave in the fucking Bible.
Right. Wouldn't you, if you were Roy Moore, when you just look at that guy and go, hey, how about you don't try to help me out? I mean, this is a guy, see.
Multiple wives in the Bible.
Yeah. See, somebody's quote like that, like of all of this, you know.
Maybe this isn't such a bad thing. Maybe we should listen to him.
Yeah, well, I'm for innocent until proven guilty. But like some guy like this Jim Ziegler, this is a guy who I'm looking at going, okay, you know what? We could probably just go ahead and drop kick this guy right out of whatever office he's currently occupying. Like, if you're going to go on record with something that stupid, then be gone with you. I like this quote though.
That's the thing too. Like, it is like these people are celebrities where it's like, you know, some guy just gets fucking stupid one night. You know, fucking one of the Kardashians with their phone, or you know, even they have public, you know, PR people, but this guy in office, like, before he says something, there's people he runs this by, right? Like, you know, the secretary, you know, they have people that work for them, you know, that could sit there and go, yeah. So, I mean, there's layers between you and opening your fucking mouth, between this thought that occurred between his ears. And somehow everybody gave this the green light, huh?
I like this quote. It was in the Washington Post article from a campaign manager of a Republican that's in a top 2018 race. He told the paper, quote, I'm prepping my candidate for what he is going to say if he's asked about this. He said, at the very least, it is something that everyone is going to have to answer. Do you think Roy Moore, at the age of 32 with a 14-year-old, is like Mary and Joseph?
Yeah. I mean, but that whole argument, I mean, I guess you could, I mean, you can even argue that scientifically. Well, you know, girls, you know, start their period at 12 years of age. Reproductively, they can have a baby, so then that means that, you know, biologically they should be sexually active, which would mean relationship and marriage. No one's going to buy that shit.
Yeah.
It's not the laws we set up. It's like, well, yes, we get it, but we realize now, because we've become more civilized, that a person's decision-making skills at 12, 13 years of age are not going to be as good at 18, or, you know, and on. So let's at least let the person, you know, that's why at age of consent, it's like, all right, at 16 years of age, you know, you can probably understand who you want to have sex with and have a better understanding. You know, some states give that leeway.
Alabama. Well, Nevada. This is... What isn't Nevada's age of consent 16?
It was when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
But that was when I was 17 and 18 years old.
That'd be funny if you looked it up and it was actually legislation that was called like Frank Muir's Law or something where they raised it. Well, you know, I do think though, going back to, you know, I think it's, if you're really going to get out from under this, you've got to hold, you know, if you really are being falsely accused, you got to hold those people legally accountable. Because remember Trump and the 16 women that accused him of sexual harassment, and he says all the accusers will be sued. They will be sued at the appropriate time. Okay, well, you know what? Let's see it, because I'm wondering if at this point that's not just one of the things that he's promised that maybe isn't going to happen, you know, and that sucks to have to do. Yeah, I get it, you know, and if in fact all those people fabricated that about you, then you've been dealt a raw deal and everything. But I do think it's important to fight that, because that's what people are going to need to see.
I don't know how you wouldn't want to. Yeah. If someone came up and falsely accused me of rape, fuck yeah, I'm going to try to sue the fuck. I'm going to do everything in my life to make them as miserable as their false accusations going to make me. Yeah. I mean, that's a fucking nightmare for someone to go through. And if someone's fucking full of shit, do everything I can. And if I have no more recourse, I mean, fuck. How could you not just be filled with a vendetta?
I agree. It's one of three things. It's either it's totally made up, you didn't have anything to do with it, or it's something happened, but it was consensual, they're saying it's not, or you did it. And two of those three options would absolutely, I think, necessitate defending your name.
Yeah, unless it's like, now that I'm thinking about it, you're right. I think a guy would not want to defend the situation if it was one of those things where it's like, fuck, I banged that girl, but it was consensual. Yeah. I'm going to say I don't know her because I'm married, and if I tell her... Now, but you know what? In all honesty, if that comes up, fuck being in trouble with your wife, even getting divorced. Like, if you have consensual sex with a girl and she switches that shit around, the worst thing, it's like at that moment, being deceitful at all and trying not to get caught, like, dude, that bridge is burned. The train is set, is gone. That ship has left the dock. Like, now it's time to be completely honest, 100%, because now it's coming down to a character thing of your word versus her word. And you fucking better be, I mean, I'm going to tell you what I cheated on in 3rd grade. You know what I mean? Like, honesty to the utmost. To where, I mean, even if it's like, can you ask my wife to leave the room? You know, like, I'm about to tell you what positions and how, whatever you want to know, you know, would you ask her? Just, I feel uncomfortable, you know, here, if your wife's still married to you at that point.
You know what's weird too is it's also like there's just, I mean, there's kind of no reason in this day and age, I don't think, to be sexually repressed in any way unless you're just putting that upon yourself. I mean, in the day and age of Tinder and things like that, I mean, you know, if you need somebody to jack off in front of, all you gotta do is create a profile. You know, we can have half a dozen people over here later on.
Hey, was Louis C.K. married when this happened?
Yes. I'm not, here's his personal backstory. He was married, had 2 daughters, and his career didn't really explode like it did until he went through a divorce a number of years ago. Part of this was happening while he was still married. Maybe not all of it, I'm not sure, but part of it was definitely back then. So,
well, I mean, I guess maybe that was. If I ever meet him, dude, I'm gonna ask him, dude, so why jerking off in front of the girl?
Yeah,
I still don't get it.
I'm gonna look forward to that meeting because it's gonna be like, oh wow, Frank Mir, huge fan of your fights. Oh yeah, I'm glad I ran into you too because I wanted to ask you.
What's the novelty behind doing the work for yourself when there's a willing partner in front of you?
Man, I don't know. One thing I do know, though, is where you can get one of those brand new Phone Blue Fighting T-shirts you're wearing, but I'm going to leave it up to you to explain that to everybody. Where do I get one of those?
You just go on phonebluefighting.com, and you can click and order there, and we'll ship it out to you. And you can also have a very cool Ouija board type design, our Halloween special.
Yeah, for sure. It's our embracing of the dark arts as
I like that. That's what you said, embracing of the dark arts.
Yeah, well, you know who I have to credit for that is your ACB commentating partner, Brian Lacey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the one that pointed that out on the night that we went to
he's terrified of the
Haunted Museum. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he might be too afraid of that T-shirt to put it on. I don't know.
Should bring him on and see what he does with it.
Yeah, for sure. Also, there's an Amazon banner on the front of phonebluefighting.com. Frank, what does that do?
So the easiest way is to help out the show by clicking through that banner to do all your Amazon shopping for your wants and needs. Basically, a small percentage at no extra cost to you, Amazon sends back to us to use towards our show.
I love it. Well, we got to put a wrap on this. I got to go do comedy. This is when I really feel like a Las Vegas comedian. Is when I go to a show that starts at midnight.
You guys have those in LA too.
But that's when you really feel like that's Vegas. You know, because I used to hear these stories about like Red Fox from Sanford & Son would do like a midnight show in Vegas. There's not a lot of those anymore. There are some though, but it's just like I like that feeling. You know, I'm leaving the house at 11:30 to roll down to the Strip to do comedy. What are you going to be doing at midnight?
I'll be sleeping.
Oh, okay.
Getting ready for the kids' game tomorrow. They got another playoff for the championship.
Oh, okay.
Football.
Okay.
Bella, Cage, Ronan's team, they were too young. I don't think they did a playoff for them. Or if they did, they didn't make the playoffs. But Cage and Bella on their team, they made it. And so tomorrow we'll be out there watching the kids play football.
Do they both play on the same team?
Yes, they do.
Okay, and it's tackle football?
It's full-blown tackle.
Wow. Are there other girls on the team besides Bella?
No. The coach's daughter's on the team 10 year, the team younger age group. She's fierce too. She hits dudes hard. It's just funny to watch Bella, and I love the reaction of all the guys at the end when they all clap hands and they realize that the freak that's been running around at inside linebacker, because she's the best athlete on the field.
Oh yeah,
one of the fastest, most explosive. She hits people. I mean, she's actually our. I'm probably gonna get in trouble here, but when we had a kid, what was it, about 3 weeks ago, and he was a big kid. Almost, over 6 foot tall, 13 years of age. and he's fucking flying down, and he's picking out the smallest guy on our team. You know, normally on a kickoff, you know, there's a certain formation, but he's just looking, and so 2 or 3 times it's just like this kid just keeps going after the smallest. It's like he's on the field looking like, oh, got this little kid. He just wants to just mash and mangle a little kid, and you know, it's like, all right, well, hey, you know what? That's within the rules, but guess what's also within the rules? So we told Bella, you see number so-and-so, he can't finish the game. So sure enough, Bella comes out there. I mean, the ball's going one direction. He's just blocking on the backside. She blasted him with a double, picked him up. I mean, both his legs went up into the air, and she drove him into the ground. Wow. Boom! And, I'm like, and then like she got up. I'm like, I don't know how she got away with that, because that was a little personal foul. I mean, play after play just kept you know, I'm like, okay, look, one of them's going to hold him up on this side, then you're going to come ear hole him on the side on this way. I mean, she's our killer. We our assassin. We'll send her after people. So it's always funny at the end of the games when guys are clapping hands, you know, everybody lines up in the 50-yard line, and you see the boys afterwards freaking out because, you know, you see long hair out the back. Yeah. But, you know, that could be a hairstyle.
Yeah, they just think she's one of those Samoans that always has like the long
and then Bella has shoulders and arms,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
So you got to, tomorrow, if you're not busy, you want to come?
When's the game?
1 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I can do that.
Yeah.
You tell me where it is and I'll show up. Now, you say, it sounds like you're doing some coaching. Are you involved in the coaching?
No, I don't. You know what?
Oh, okay.
Look, when it comes to fighting, I have to be involved more in the coaching.
Yeah.
And wrestling practices, obviously now I'm helping out at Meadows. But I want to be the kids' dad. Like, I always feel like that's a hard thing, you know, like, because being a coach, sometimes you have to give information that is not nice.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then as a father, sometimes I have to talk to my kids in a way that's not nice, you know? So like, I really just relish or really just want to stay the kids' father as much as possible. There's only one of me, man. I mean, they can have many coaches. They'll have a lot of friends. I'm their only dad. So I really want to stay in dad mode to where, you know, so I'll come up and like, you know, the coaches will be screaming, yelling, or, you know, or positive, negative, whatever criticism. You know, I can sit there and go, hey, you know, what are you feeling right now? You know, this. Okay, well, you know what? You know, maybe if you lower your eyes over them next time, you know, you're coming out of your stance a little too quick, you're overextending, or you're not getting off the ball fast enough. I'll give tips like that. But no, I think the only time I ever got involved in the coaching was I saw that other player just being a complete asshole. At one point, the whistle hadn't been blown, but the play was obviously dead. You had a kid standing there, and he was the guy coming out and just trying to pick people off that are just standing there watching a dead play. It's like, what are you doing, man? Yeah. So, I mean, it's like one of those things like, well, it's legal, but then everything I'm going to do to you too. So I went over to the coach, and, you know, he was furious. I'm like, all right, well, hold on, Bella, this is what we're going to do. This, and this. And again, you know, the double, I had to tell her was a little, I was like, okay, you can't pick a kid up and shoot a double leg and slam him into the grass like that. Yeah. But the rest of the just, you know, look, every play, I don't care where the ball goes, you go after him. And then after a while, that, you know, it kind of straightened the kid out a little bit, like, oh, okay, shit, there's retribution. That's a good thing about sports, and that's one of the things why I think that sometimes in America, we're a weak country over. You can't check people, you know, and that's one thing I think why being in gyms and growing up is such a good, positive thing. Because if you have bad behavior, you get singled out pretty quickly, and the rest of the people can straighten your behavior, you know, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, you're being an asshole. And being an asshole usually in a sporting event can be very painful.
Yeah.
You know, because then people look at them like, oh, you're that dick, huh? Well, guess what? We're all going to hunt for you now.
Yeah.
You know, so then all of a sudden you're like, well, it could be better to be a good guy, be competitive, and be known as a fierce competitor, but you don't want to ever be known as an asshole. It's like, well, if you're being an asshole, we're going to, you know, we're going to lay it on you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that.
So then behavior corrects itself instead of just sitting there and let's talk about it. I'm like, pain's a great motivator.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, good. Well, good luck to the team tomorrow. I'll make it out there if I can. You got to tell me where it is. I'll show up with my cowbell. Do any parents do that?
No,
you have any?
That's a Sacramento thing, I think.
Oh,
right? Isn't
okay.
It?
Well, I'll leave
was
my
that a Texas thing too?
home.
What's the cowbell?
I don't know. I just remember as a kid, like there would always be those really overzealous parents that would show up with noisemakers and stuff like that.
We get overzealous parents.
Yeah.
The one weekend I was out of town, the game the kids were in, 2 parents got arrested for attacking the referee.
Okay.
It's football.
That is so ridiculous.
You know, Jen grew up a little differently than I grew up.
Yeah.
And so whenever I bring her into that type of economy, where things are a little bit more where I grew up, she's just like, how are they acting like this? What's going on?
Yeah.
And, you know, poor Jen grew up with no brothers.
Yeah.
No, you know, nothing like that. I mean, so I'm like, she goes, how are they talking to each other right now? I'm like, babe, this is it's a football field. It's kind of,
you know, if you wanted to really play a dirty trick on me, if I show up for the game tomorrow, would I show up by myself and some of your parents like, oh, is that your friend? You'd be like, I don't know who that is. It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah. He's sitting there with a camera just watching our kids.
It's kind of weird.
You might laugh about that, but I remember when Bella, her first sport was soccer. She was like 5 years old. I was a new parent, you know, so I was a little bit more hyper vigilant than I probably should have been.
Yeah.
You know, I thought everybody was a fucking pedophile. And rapist, you know, everybody was out to fucking take my kid, you know.
Yeah.
So I would sit there and I made sure I knew if you were at the field, which kid was yours, or okay, you know, who are you? So all the time people would come out. I probably got thought of being as extra friendly. It's like, oh, so who's your friend over there? You know, oh no, that's Billy Bob, the cousin of so and so. Okay, like I just always had to make a mental note of who was sitting there watching, because you know, God forbid, I was like, who are you? Like, oh, you know, like no one knows who this guy is. Then like we got problems.
Yeah.
Why are you sitting there watching a kids game?
Yeah. Yeah. You always want to be able to have a good explanation for that. I did you know that American Doll store? You know what that is?
No.
I don't even know if they have those here. There's a store called American Doll, and they manufacture these sort of high-end custom-made dolls like girls play with, you know, dolls. But you go to the store and they have a cafe, and it's genius marketing. What they do is you can select the doll in the store, and then they will bring the doll to have lunch with you. They'll put it in a high chair, so your daughter is sitting there, you and your family or whatever, the daughter's having lunch with us.
You better have a daughter there. Or you can have a boy.
That's what I'm getting to.
I'm okay with that too. You know what I mean? Like, hey, as long as the kid makes a decision, he can make whatever decision he wants to make. You know?
So that's what I'm getting to, because the way it would work is basically the marketing behind it is parents are taking the kid to the store, they pick out the doll, you sit and you have lunch with the doll, and of course by the end of lunch you're buying the doll. You know what I mean? Because the kid loves the doll. But on my Dallas my radio show back in Dallas, we would do this bit with our producer, who was just a guy named Mike. He actually had a wife and kid himself, but we would wire him up and to record, and we would have him go to the American Doll Girl Cafe. When he walks in the maitre d', he'd just go, table for one, please.
And I'm surprised they didn't make a rule.
He'd sit there and eat lunch. It just made him all nervous as hell that he was in there.
No problem, sir. We just want to take a picture of you real quick.
Yeah. No,
we need to forward this to the proper authorities.
Just really good salad bar. I'm just here for that.
Yeah. But he would order a doll too, right?
No. I think that was the really weird part, is that he would just be there for the food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like going to Chuck E. Cheese for just the pizza.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, a lot of fun.
That's funny.
Okay. I got to go do comedy. Frank's got to go to bed. One of us has to fight Fedor in the early part of next year, so time to get the training regimen going. All right. Exciting news we broke tonight on the Phone Booth Fighting Podcast. Glad you were here to be a part of it, and join us for the next one, won't you? Another quick reminder that you can subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Radio, SoundCloud, or wherever podcasts are available. You want to do us a big favor, we would really appreciate you going to our iTunes page, looking up Phone Booth Fighting, and clicking on those 5 stars. That helps keep us at the top of the rankings. And if you have an extra moment or two, write a favorable line as a review. We like to read those on the air. And apart from that, really the most valuable thing you can do is to tell a friend. Tell a friend about the Phone Booth Fighting Podcast. That's how you're going to help us grow this thing organically, one loyal listener at a time. For Frank Muir, I'm Richard Hunter, and we'll see you right back here next time on Phone Booth Fighting.